Chapter 2718, 2718 Stunned, 2718 Stunned. Roar. The void yaksha had a violent expression. Even though he was injured by the water of the bitter springs and martial Dao purgatory, he still glared fiercely at the martial Dao prime body and let out a roar. If you want me to submit, don't use that water of the bitter springs. The void yaksha ground his teeth and cackled. If you have the guts, remove this flame barrier and fight me openly. The martial Dao prime body did not stop in his tracks. With a thought, the martial Dao purgatory dissipated instantly. This time round, the void yaksha was stunned. He merely said that casually because he had no way out. To think that this human would really remove the surrounding flames. Given his innate divine power, as long as he wanted to escape, this human would definitely not be able to catch him. However, the fact that this person was so cocky made him embarrassed to just turn and escape. He was a king expert of the yaksha race, a void yaksha. If a void yaksha like him turned around and fled in the face of a human, it would be a huge humiliation that he could not afford. Foolish human, I'll let you see the difference between you humans and our yaksha race today. The void yaksha rubbed his palms together and grinned sinisterly. You'll pay the heaviest price for your stupidity. In the opinion of the void yaksha, the reason why the martial Dao prime body was so arrogant was clearly because he fell for his provocation. His perfected grotto heaven had already shattered, and this person had given up on using the flame barrier. It was equivalent to giving up his strongest move. Without the support of a grotto heaven, everything depended on one's physique, bloodline, divine powers, and secret skills. He had the upper hand in every aspect. 100 Ghosts Night Parade. The void yaksha conjured a strange dermic art with both hands, and his figure swayed as he hollered. As his figure swayed, more than 100 ghostly shadows appeared from his body and charged towards the martial Dao prime body. The ghosts were identical to the void yaksha and were filled with ghostly auras. Their faces were ugly, and it was difficult to tell them apart. The martial Dao prime body's expression was unchanged, and his eyes burned with 2 purple flames. Under the illumination of the flames, the 100-odd ghostly shadows turned transparent and indistinct. Only one phantom remained in its corporeal form under the illumination of the purple flames in his eyes. That was the true body of the void yaksha. The 2 balls of flames in the eyes of the martial Dao prime body were extraordinary and could smelt all divine powers and disintegrate secret skills and sutras in a short period of time. Back in Divine Firmament Palace, the Green Lotus True Body relied on the purple flames of the martial Dao prime body to resolve the 8th round of the Ling Long Zugzwang. The void yaksha's secret skill, 100 Ghosts Night Parade, was indeed powerful. Combined with the best illusion and clone technique, it could deceive and confuse everyone in the world. However, under the purple flames of the martial Dao prime body, his true form was revealed instantly. The 100 ghosts split into different directions and attacked the martial Dao prime body. Waves of sinister wind assaulted his face and penetrated everywhere, wanting to seep into the body of the martial Dao prime body. I see. The martial Dao prime body nodded to himself. The 100 Ghosts Night Parade was not only a combination of illusion and clone techniques, nor was it merely to hide the tracks of his true body. The ghost phantoms contained a large amount of cold ghost chi as well. If cultivators ignored the ghost phantoms and allowed them to descend and ghost chi to enter their bodies, their bloodlines would be invaded and their combat strength would be greatly reduced. Those with weak bloodlines might even be severely injured and lose their combat strength. However, this was the martial Dao prime body that the void yaksha was dealing with. The bloodline of the martial Dao prime body merely circulated slightly and scorching blood chi surged out through the pores on his body, burning the ghost phantoms into ashes. You've got some capabilities? The void yaksha burst into laughter. His true body had already closed in and his bulging eyes were bloodshot. His figure swayed once more and he hollered, twin ghosts door slapping. As the void yaksha swayed, 2 tall and burly figures reached out with ghostly hands filled with sharp claws and grabbed towards Suzimo. This time round, it was neither an illusion nor a phantom. This was a true clone. The two Void Yakshas appeared at the same time and released incomparably powerful auras. Their strength was terrifying, and they displayed the offensive power of two ghosts. Be it 100 Ghosts Night Parade or Twin Ghosts Door Slapping, they were all killing moves of the Void Yaksha race. Not many living beings of the same cultivation realm could defend against those two killing moves head-on. Among the 10,000 races, even powerful races like the God race and the Dragon race had to avoid the two killing moves of the Void Yaksha. However, the martial Dao Prime Body was different. He did not dodge or even use any divine powers or secret skills. Without any warning, when the two ghosts arrived and were inches away, he raised his hand and punched twice. The Void Yaksha's expression changed in shock. In his eyes, this was merely a dead person. However, after the martial Dao Prime Body attacked, there was only a searing gigantic fist left in the Void Yaksha's vision, as though it could shatter everything in the world. There was no life, power, divine power, or physique or bloodline that could defend against such power. An incomparably tragic power surged over, and the Void Yaksha felt suffocated. He had never seen such power among living beings of the same cultivation realm. Even for God race and Dragon race beings with powerful physiques and bloodlines, they would definitely not be able to release such power. The Void Yaksha hurriedly stacked his hands, wanting to block the fist of the martial Dao Prime Body. Bang! Bang! There were two muffled sounds. The Void Yaksha charged over extremely quickly but retreated even faster. The clone he had just condensed was shattered by a single punch from the martial Dao Prime Body, and his true body was sent flying as well, crashing heavily to the ground and creating a huge pit. The martial Dao Prime Body descended from the skies in a flash. In the huge pit, the Void Yaksha endured the intense pain in his arms with a furious gaze. However, he did not submit and released his bloodline phenomenon, wanting to get up and fight again. His bloodline phenomenon was a tall phantom. However, the moment the phantom rose, it was suppressed by a searing red furnace that descended from the skies and spewed raging flames. In a few breaths, he was burned to ashes. The figure of the martial Dao Prime Body reappeared and descended into the pit, stepping on the chest of the Void Yaksha. A tremendous force stepped on the Void Yaksha. The Void Yaksha could not turn around at all, and could only struggle continuously. He bared his teeth and roared at the martial Dao Prime Body. The martial Dao Prime Body was expressionless and his gaze was cold. He raised his fist and smashed it against the sharp fangs of the Void Yaksha. Crack! Accompanied by a crisp sound, the Void Yaksha's fangs were shattered by a single punch from the martial Dao Prime Body. That punch not only stunned the Void Yaksha, but it also made him behave. Instantly, he stopped roaring and panted heavily, his gaze turning fearful. The Void Yaksha finally realized how terrifying the human before him was. If that punch was not aimed at his teeth but his head would be shattered. Chapter 2719, 2719 Leaving Hell. 2719 Leaving Hell. The martial Dao Prime Body raised his hand once more and his fist hovered above the head of the Void Yaksha, prepared to continue smashing down. Stop weeding me. The Void Yaksha waved his hand hurriedly and said in a muffled voice, I admik we feet. The martial Dao Prime Body frowned slightly and did not understand much. However, when he saw that the Void Yaksha seemed to have given in, he stopped and said coldly, Speak properly. The Void Yaksha felt a little aggrieved and spat out a mouthful of broken teeth. He pointed at his mouth that was filled with broken teeth and explained, It's my halt. I lutha. The martial Dao Prime Body thought about it carefully before understanding. The Void Yaksha's teeth were shattered by him, and that was why his words were unclear. The martial Dao Prime Body stood up and raised his leg. The Void Yaksha crawled up hurriedly and stood at the side obediently, looking at the martial Dao Prime Body with fear. The martial Dao Prime Body glared at the Void Yaksha in silence. The Void Yaksha was indeed very powerful. He could actually defend against 70% of the power of his punch earlier on, and his palms and arms were not broken. Such a physique and bloodline was top-notch, even among the 10,000 races. Coupled with that secret skill, unfathomable, he was not inferior to paragons and monster incarnates of the dragon race and god race. The martial Dao Prime body had the intention of subduing the Void Yaksha. However, the Void Yaksha had a bad temper and an unreasonable personality. It was clear that the latter would not submit easily. Even if he was forced to submit now, as long as the martial Dao Prime body left, the Void Yaksha would still escape. The martial Dao Prime body put away that thought for the time being. Right now, the most important thing for him was to return to the medium Kiliacosm and save the Green Lotus True Body. The martial Dao Prime body said, "As long as you can bring me out of the hell world and back to the medium Kiliacosm, I'll give you freedom. You can leave as you please. I won't force you." When he heard that, a look of joy flashed through the Void Yaksha's eyes. He straightened his body and patted his chest as well, shouting, "Don't worry, since I've Lutha, I'll heap to my Pwamif and bring you out of here." With that said, the Void Yaksha led the way in the direction of the Hell Yellow Springs. The martial Dao Prime body followed behind. Before long, the two of them arrived at the source of the Hell Yellow Springs. The Void Yaksha did not hesitate and leaped into the Hell Yellow Springs. In the 9 springs of hell, only water from the bitter springs could cause significant damage to him. Although the power of the other springs were strong as well, they were within his tolerance. The martial Dao Prime body swept his gaze across the Yellow Springs section on the stone tablet beside him before leaping into the Hell Yellow Springs and following behind the Void Yaksha. This time round, the two of them traveled down the river at a much faster speed. After an unknown period of time, the Void Yaksha's figure gradually slowed down. A barrier formed by countless light spots appeared, like a wall erected in front of him. Under normal circumstances, the barrier formed by the interwoven laws of the world could not be seen with the naked eye. However, because the Hell Yellow Springs surged endlessly to the other side of the barrier, the laws barrier could be seen. The two of them were in the Hell Yellow Springs. The Void Yaksha sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness. With the Hell Yellow Springs flowing here, the laws between the two worlds should be weakest here. The martial Dao Prime body nodded slightly and took a step forward. 2 balls of flames burned in his eyes and his blood chi surged. A gigantic furnace that surged with flames vaguely appeared around his body. In the blink of an eye, the martial Dao Prime body channeled his blood chi to its limits. Boom! The martial Dao Prime body took a step forward and punched fiercely at the intersection of the Hell Yellow Springs and the Laws Barrier. The Laws Barrier ahead swayed slightly and shone with endless brilliance, devouring the power of the martial Dao Prime body's punch completely. The Void Yaksha was secretly speechless when he saw that. It was only then that he realized that the human had not used his full strength against him earlier on. The punch the person just released could actually shake the Laws Barrier ahead. That power was already infinitely close to the Emperor realm. The martial Dao Prime body recovered slightly and advanced once more. His domain appeared faintly, and together with his bloodline phenomenon, he lifted the Hell Suppression tripod and smashed it down against the Laws Barrier ahead without holding back. Bang! The strike of the martial Dao Prime body seemed to have reached the limits of the Laws Barrier. An even more blinding light spread out from it to neutralize and devour the power released by the strike. Under the gaze of the Void Yaksha, the Laws Barrier clearly caved in. Pissed, the Void Yaksha gasped and swallowed a lot of water from the Hell Yellow Springs. That attack earlier on almost pierced through the Laws Barrier. It's not enough. The martial Dao Prime body shook his head gently and shifted his gaze to the Void Yaksha at the side. The Void Yaksha was extremely smart as well and instantly understood the intentions of the martial Dao Prime body. He took a few steps forward and stood shoulder to shoulder with the martial Dao Prime body. The two of them attacked at the same time and attacked the Laws Barrier once more. With a flash of light, their powers were resolved by the laws of the world, once more like rocks sinking into the sea. The martial Dao Prime body vaguely realized that unless there was sufficient strength above a certain level, no matter how many people there were, the Laws Barrier could not be shaken. If he could not even take this passageway of the Hell Yellow Springs, There was probably no way he would be able to leave the Hell World, not to mention returning to the medium Kiliacosm eventually. The Void Yaksha shrugged and spread out his gigantic hand, expressing his helplessness. The martial Dao Prime Body's heart skipped a beat as he suddenly took out the Netherworld treasure mirror from the Essence Martial Grotto Heaven. The Void Yaksha was interested when he saw the dark ancient mirror. Instinctively, he extended his fingertip, wanting to touch it. Suddenly, a strange bloodlight appeared on the mirror. The Void Yaksha's expression changed starkly, as though he recognized the origin of the Netherworld treasure mirror. His body trembled, and he retracted his palm hurriedly. The way he looked at the martial Dao Prime Body became even more wary. He finally realized why this human could become the Lord of Hell that was revered by the Nine Hells. The Netherworld treasure mirror had once devoured a large amount of essence blood. After killing Hell Lord Torment Springs, the blood light on the mirror clearly dimmed significantly. However, the martial Dao Prime Body sensed that he should be able to activate it once more. The martial Dao Prime Body turned the Netherworld treasure mirror and channeled his spirit consciousness. A blood glow gradually appeared on the dark mirror and became more and more obvious, like a blood-colored pupil. The Netherworld Eye. After the blood pupil appeared, the entire Netherworld treasure mirror exuded a terrifying and sinister aura. The Void Yaksha had a fearful expression and moved instinctively, hiding behind the martial Dao Prime Body, afraid that the blood pupil would see him. Suddenly, the Netherworld Eye burst forth with a blood light that pierced through the layers of Hell Yellow Springs and landed on the Law's barrier ahead. Instantly, countless lights surged from the Law's barrier, wanting to devour and neutralize the blood light. However, the power of the blood light was extremely terrifying as well and gradually corroded a medium-sized hole in the Law's barrier. Success. The eyes of the martial Dao Prime Body lit up. He turned around and grabbed the Void Yaksha, throwing him over first. Thereafter, he followed and charged through the world barrier along the Hell Yellow Springs. The moment the two of them passed through, the blood light power of the Netherworld Eye had already weakened. The hole in the world barrier closed and returned to normal. Chapter 2720. 2720 Gathering in the Netherworld. 2720 Gathering in the Netherworld. The martial Dao Prime Body turned around and looked at the closed hole on the world barrier behind him. His heart skipped a beat. He did not know how long he would have to wait before he could return after leaving the Hell World. Actually, there was nothing in the Hell World that he missed, including his status as the Lord of Hell. However, there was an old friend of Tianhuang mainland over there after all. Right then, the Void Yaksha sent a voice transmission to his spirit consciousness. The Netherworld is a little special. We must not expose our identities. Otherwise, we will definitely be hunted down by the living beings of the Netherworld. The two of them had already violated the rules of the two worlds by breaking through the barrier between the two worlds through the Hell Yellow Springs. It was the same way the Void Yaksha landed in the Hell World and was imprisoned by Hell Lord Bitter Springs. How can one distinguish between living beings of the Netherworld? The martial Dao Prime Body asked. Void Yaksha said, "There's no need for you to disguise yourself. Your aura has always been unfathomable and difficult to detect. I have to put on a cloak. There's a distinct difference between living beings of the Netherworld and other living beings. Living beings of the Netherworld have no flesh and blood." Oh. The martial Dao Prime Body was slightly surprised and asked, "Can one survive normally in the Netherworld without flesh and blood?" Of course. The Void Yaksha said, "These living beings of the Netherworld have long possessed a complete cultivation system and can long break free from their reliance on flesh and blood. Furthermore, in the Netherworld, any living being of flesh and blood will be suppressed and sealed no matter how powerful their bloodline is." The martial Dao Prime Body sensed from within the Hell Yellow Springs and nodded to himself. Indeed. After passing through the barrier, there was clearly a strange power in his bloodline. No matter how he channeled his bloodline, he could not break free. The Void Yaksha continued, "Furthermore, don't underestimate the little ghosts of the Netherworld. If we encounter ghost kings of the same level, we have to deal with them carefully. The martial Dao Prime Body frowned and asked, "The living beings of the Netherworld belong to the ghost race as well, similar to your ghost world?" The Void Yiksha explained, "Although we're all collectively called the ghost race, in reality, we're extremely different from the ghost race of the Netherworld. To be precise, we're considered the Yaksha race. We were separated from the ghost race and were born in the river of life of the ghost world. We've already developed flesh and blood. However, the little ghosts, big ghosts, and even ghost kings and ghost emperors of the Netherworld are all in the form of souls. Although they had already arrived in the Netherworld, in order to hide their tracks, the two of them still hid at the bottom of the hell yellow springs and flowed downstream while communicating with their spirit consciousnesses." The Void Yaksha continued, "These ghosts in hell can attack our essence spirits directly. If we're not careful, we'll be severely injured. With the essence spirit destroyed, no matter how powerful one's bloodline and body is, it's only a shell." The martial Dao Prime Body pondered in silence. There were all sorts of strange things in the trichiliocosm. He did not expect such a group of special life forms to exist in the Netherworld. They had already completely escaped the restraints of flesh and blood and had their own unique cultivation system. Such a world was indeed qualified to be independent of the medium chiliocosm. With this, it was also not hard to understand why there had to be such strong laws and world barriers between the Netherworld and the other worlds. If living beings of the other worlds could freely move in and out of the Netherworld and vice versa, the trichiliocosm would have long been in chaos. The Void Yaksha reminded once more, "It's best if we hide in the hell yellow springs and conceal our tracks. We'll follow the current and arrive below the Six Paths Gate before appearing and charging into the ghost world. If little ghosts of the Netherworld discover us in advance, we'll definitely attract the encirclement and pursuit of countless experts of the Netherworld. At that time, I'm afraid we won't even get to see the Six Paths Gate." "Where is the Six Paths Gate?" the martial Dao Prime Body asked. The Void Yaksha explained, "The Six Paths Gate is the entrance to the Six Paths and lies above the Ghost Mountains in the 5 directions." "Ghost Mountains in the 5 directions?" The martial Dao Prime Body frowned slightly. Void Yaksha said, "The 5 Ghost Mountains are located in the 5 directions of the Netherworld and are held down by 5 Ghost Emperors. The Netherworld is complete and the Great Tao is flawless. Therefore, these Ghost Emperors are all Emperor experts. If we appear, we have to rush into the door of the Ghost World immediately. If we're discovered by any Ghost Emperor, the consequences will be unimaginable." As a king expert of the Yaksha race, the Void Yaksha's combat strength was extremely strong. However, when he came to the Netherworld, he became naggy and abnormally careful. "Our existence is simply delicious food to some experts of the Netherworld." The Void Yaksha said, "They can use many divine powers and secret skills to target our essence spirits and devour our souls to strengthen themselves." As the martial Dao Prime Body listened to the Void Yaksha's explanation, he flowed down from the depths of the hell yellow springs. Suddenly, the martial Dao Prime Body's heart skipped a beat and he stopped. "What's wrong?" The Void Yaksha stopped hurriedly and turned to ask. The martial Dao Prime Body's gaze was cold and his expression under the silver mask was a little dark. Earlier on, he had sensed the existence of the Green Lotus True Body once more. Back in the Hell World, the moment he advanced to the martial domain realm and condensed a domain, he briefly established a connection with the Green Lotus True Body. Thereafter, the connection between the two true bodies vanished once more. There was a high chance that this short perception was because the martial Dao Prime Body had condensed a domain. As for the formation of the domain, it temporarily broke through the barrier between the worlds and allowed the two true bodies to establish a connection. But now, the martial Dao Prime Body had already sensed the Green Lotus True Body without doing anything. That perception was extremely clear and showed no signs of disappearing. There was only one possibility. The two true bodies were in the same world. The Green Lotus True Body was in the Netherworld as well. To be precise, the soul of the Green Lotus True Body had arrived in the Netherworld. That was because the Green Lotus True Body could not enter the Netherworld directly in the medium chiliocosm. Only souls could enter the Netherworld. In other words, The Green Lotus true body was already dead. In the end, he was still a step too late. The expression of the martial Dao prime body was dark and his eyes were filled with killing intent. Right then, his heart skipped a beat as he suddenly recalled Consort Yu's experience. Before long, he realized that as long as he could ensure that the memories of the Green Lotus true body were not destroyed and not washed away by the Hell Yellow Springs, the Green Lotus true body would not truly die. The Green Lotus true body could reincarnate with his complete memories. At that thought, the martial Dao prime body waved his robe and swept up the void yaksha beside him, breaking through the void in front of him and entering in a flash. The two true bodies had to meet up before the Green Lotus true body's memories were erased by the Hell Yellow Springs. "What are you doing?" The void yaksha's expression changed starkly. The martial Dao prime body would definitely alarm the experts of the Netherworld if he broke through the void of the Netherworld and teleported. The bloodline of the void yaksha was indeed powerful. Along the way, the teeth in the void yaksha's mouth had already regrew and his speech returned to normal. Chapter 2721 2721 Netherworld Death's Door, Yellow Springs Road. 2721 Netherworld Death's Door, Yellow Springs Road. Su Zimo's last memory of collapsing in the Emperor's tomb was hearing a familiar voice. However, he was unconscious at that time and no longer had the strength to distinguish. When he regained consciousness and woke up, he realized that he was in a dark and sinister place surrounded by a large white fog. This did not seem to be the Emperor's tomb. At that moment, Su Zimo recalled the voice in the Emperor's tomb with a strange expression. How could it be him? Su Zimo was puzzled and could not understand. Right then, he realized that there were many people like him in the white fog. Their expressions were numb and their gazes were empty as they walked forward in a daze. Among this group of people, there were men, women, old and young, as well as living beings of other races. It was a massive sight. Strangely, there were no conflicts despite so many living beings of the various races gathered together. Everyone seemed to have a tacit understanding and kept walking forward. Suddenly, Su Zimo realized that he was one of them. He wanted to stop in his tracks, but realized that he could not control his body at all. It was as though he was being pulled forward by an unknown force. What's going on? Su Zimo had a bewildered expression. He took a few steps forward and arrived beside a middle-aged man, asking, "Fellow Taoist, where is this?" The middle-aged man looked askance at Su Zimo and revealed a strange smile. He looked as though he was crying and did not speak. "Sir, where is this?" Su Zimo arrived beside an old man and asked once more. The old man sighed and did not reply. He merely raised his trembling arm and pointed into the distance. Following the old man's guidance, Su Zimo looked over and vaguely saw a gigantic city pass appear between the two mountains in the fog ahead. There was a plaque hanging on the city pass. There seemed to be words on it, but they could not be seen clearly. Right then, someone walked past Su Zimo and bumped into his shoulder. However, he did not feel anything. His body seemed to be transparent as that person passed through him effortlessly. Su Zimo opened his mouth slightly and vaguely realized where he was. Before long, he followed the crowd and arrived below the city pass. Su Zimo looked up. There were golden words written on the plaque, "Netherworld Death's Door." Indeed, Su Zimo sighed with a conflicted expression. To think that he could not manage to escape the calamity of the sect master of the academy in the end and would still die. His soul came to the legendary Netherworld and he witnessed the Death's Door. The vast crowd was merely souls of living beings that arrived here after they died. It was the same for him. The crowd entered the Death's Door one after another. On both sides of the Death's Door stood many little ghosts of the Netherworld. They held pitch-black chains and whips in their hands and urged the crowd, "Hurry, hurry. Once you enter the Death's Door, you will be separated from life and death." A little ghost of the Netherworld said loudly. In the end, there were still people in the crowd who were indignant. When they arrived at Death's Door, they stopped and looked back. "What are you looking at?" A little ghost of the Netherworld had an impatient expression as he pulled out the iron whip in his hand and whipped the person fiercely. Ah! The person cried out tragically, and a clear mark was clearly left on his soul body, causing his soul to turn much dimmer. You've already arrived at the Netherworld. Don't even think about turning back. A little ghost of the Netherworld sneered. If you had that thought, you might as well spend your time praying for better luck when you enter the 6 paths of reincarnation later, so that you can have a good place to go. This person was extremely stubborn and stood with his head held high, still unwilling to enter the death's door. In his previous life, he was also a renowned expert and big shot. He died and his soul entered the Netherworld. Naturally, he was indignant that he had fallen to such a state. He did not want to be bullied by some little ghosts of the Netherworld either. If this was in the medium Kiliacosm, the cultivation of these little ghosts would be equivalent to Earth Immortals and Heaven Immortals. However, no matter how powerful the experts in his previous life were, their souls could not defend against the power of these little ghosts once they entered the Netherworld. You must have a death wish. One of the little ghosts of the Netherworld sneered and raised his whip, whipping the person fiercely. This whip was clearly forged from special materials and could cause immense damage to souls. In just a few whips, that person's soul was already extremely weak and dim, without much life left. The little ghost of the Netherworld spat and cursed. I've seen many people like you. No matter who you were in your previous life, you have to be obedient in the Netherworld. Pausing for a moment, the little ghost of the Netherworld glared at the crowd. The same goes for you guys. Whoever refuses to submit shall end up like him. Initially, there were some people who had the same thoughts of resisting. At that moment, they no longer insisted and entered the death's door one after another. Lackeys like the little ghosts were often the ones who gave the most trouble. Su Zimo followed the crowd and entered the death's door as well. After the death's door, the little ghost of the Netherworld who originally stood guard there followed the group of people to their next location. As for the death's door, it was replaced by another group of little ghosts from the Netherworld. Su Zimo followed the crowd in no hurry. That was because he had finally established a connection with the martial Dao Prime body earlier on. The two true bodies exchanged memories continuously and filled up this blank period of time rapidly. At the same time, he knew that the martial Dao Prime body was rushing over. However, the space of the Netherworld was complicated, and it would take the martial Dao Prime body a little more time to teleport through space. As Su Zimo followed the crowd, he surveyed his surroundings. A large area in the surroundings was still enveloped by layers of white fog. As for the dirt road beneath their feet, it was slightly yellow and emitted a strange power. A little ghost of the Netherworld said, "Let me educate you guys. The path you're walking on is the Yellow Springs Road. In a while, all of you will have to wait for a bridge, the Bridge of Oblivion. Hee. The Yellow Spring surges beneath the Bridge of Oblivion. Every single one of you will be baptized by the Yellow Springs on the bridge, and all memories of your previous life will turn into a blank. As for your final destination, whether you head to the Hell Dao or Hungry Ghost Dao, whether you reincarnate as humans or demons, everything will depend on your own fate." Before long, everyone heard the roar of water and the aura ahead became moist. The Yellow Springs of the Netherworld was right ahead. Su Zimo gradually slowed down. He could enter the death's door. However, there was no way he could let himself be baptized by the water of the Yellow Springs. Once he was baptized by the Yellow Springs and his memories disappeared, it would mean that all traces of his life would be erased and he would truly die. Chapter 2722, 2722 Black and White Impermanences. 2722 Black and White Impermanences. Su Zimo slowed down and gradually lagged behind the crowd. Before long, everyone arrived before a surging, withered river. On the river, there was a stone bridge modeled with time that reached the other side. On the side of the stone bridge stood a stele with the words "Bridge of Oblivion" written on it. "This is the River of Oblivion. You guys can get on the bridge," a little ghost of the Netherworld urged. At this point, many living beings had nowhere to retreat and could only climb onto the bridge one after another and head towards the other side. Su Zimo learned from the martial Dao prime body that the so-called River of Oblivion was actually the Hell Yellow Springs. The souls that ascended the Bridge of Oblivion were washed away by the mist of the Hell Yellow Springs, and their memories of their previous lives were wiped away. With a blank slate, they entered reincarnation. Many living beings walked towards the Bridge of Oblivion, one after another, while Su Zimo stood rooted to the ground. "What are you doing here?" A little ghost of the Netherworld could not help but frown when he saw Su Zimo standing on the spot. "Waiting for someone?" Su Zimo replied. "Haha." The few little ghosts of the Netherworld laughed when they heard that. A little ghost had a mocking expression and asked teasingly, "Why? Is there someone who will be accompanying you to die? Stop dawdling and cross the bridge quickly." Another little ghost of the Netherworld urged impatiently. Su Zimo remained rooted to the ground in silence. "You must have a death wish." A little ghost of the Netherworld strode forward and raised the whip in his hand, lashing out at Su Zimo. The others were already used to this scene. The other little ghosts were already used to it. For every batch of souls that came here, there were some who were disobedient and indignant. Some were even tortured to death by the little ghosts of the Netherworld. Their souls were thrown into the River of Oblivion and could not enter reincarnation. The little ghosts of the Netherworld had seen many people like Su Zimo. The whip descended from the skies. Su Zimo knew that this whip was specially refined to counter souls. However, he refused to be humiliated and reached out to grab the whip. Piak! The whip landed in his palm. He did not feel much impact. Instead, a strange glow appeared on his body with dermic Dao imprints. That scene made many little ghosts of the Netherworld frown slightly. Even Su Zimo was stunned. Under normal circumstances, he was already dead. No matter what dermic Dao he cultivated, it had already died with the green lotus true body and could not be brought to the Netherworld. That was what it meant for one to die with their Daos dissipated. But now, there was actually a dermic Dao imprint on his soul that followed him to the Netherworld. It was this dermic Dao imprint that helped him defend against the damage caused by the little ghost's whip. Heaven Burial Sutra? Su Zimo was surprised. He had cultivated the Heaven Burial Sutra for many years. Although he comprehended a lot, he still had some doubts. This cultivation technique was indeed powerful. However, compared to the other taboo mystic classics that he cultivated, the Heaven Burial Sutra did not seem to have reached the level of a taboo mystic classic. It was only at that moment that Su Zimo gradually understood that the scene before him was probably the reason why the Heaven Burial Sutra became a taboo mystic classic. The dermic Dao of the Heaven Burial Sutra was imprinted on his soul. Although he was dead, the dermic Dao of the Heaven Burial Sutra had not disappeared. Furthermore, it followed his soul into the Netherworld. This situation was a little similar to the reincarnation of a perfected immortal. Typically, when perfected immortals reincarnated, Immortal King experts would cast spells and leave behind dermic Dao imprints so that it would be easier to guide them after they reincarnated. And now, Su Zimo had such a situation without anyone's help by relying on the dermic Dao of the Heaven Burial Sutra. A little ghost of the Netherworld sneered. "So an expert left behind an imprint and wanted to guide you to be reborn. I've seen many such situations. If you had been obedient, I might have let you pass if I was in a good mood. However, the fact that you still dare to resist in the Netherworld means you must really be tired of living." Another little ghost of the Netherworld shook the chain in his hand and said fiercely, "Everyone, attack together and grind away the dermic Dao imprint on this person. Kill him." Splash! Dozens of chains descended from the skies and interweaved into a huge net, enveloping Su Zimo and binding him on the spot before long. Su Zimo looked at the surrounding little ghosts of the Netherworld and said coldly, "I think you guys are the ones who are tired of living." The moment he said that, a crack suddenly appeared in the void above everyone's heads. A sinister wind surged from within with a chilling aura. Immediately after, two figures descended. One of them was wearing a spacious cloak that covered him tightly, and his figure could not be seen clearly. The other was dressed in a purple robe and wore a silver mask. Two faint purple flames burned in his exposed eyes. The aura of the two of them was clearly extremely different from the Netherworld. "Who are you people?" A little ghost of the Netherworld berated sternly. Scram! The martial Dao prime body waved his robes and released a scorching wave of air. Dozens of little ghosts of the Netherworld were reduced to ashes instantly. The tall figure in a cloak beside him was the Void Yaksha. At that moment, his expression was ugly as he muttered, "With such a huge commotion, the experts of the Netherworld must have already rushed over." Right then, a sinister wind blew. From the white fog not far away, two figures gradually appeared, one tall and one short, one fat and one thin. The person on the left was tall and thin with a smile on his face. However, his face was terrifyingly pale, and he wore a pointed hat with the words, "Wealth for the Good," written on the front. The person on the right had a fierce expression and was wide and fat. He had a dark face and was also wearing a hat with the words, "Peace in the World," written on it. Clang! The two of them held handcuffs and shackles in their hands and walked towards the martial Dao prime body. Black and white impermanences. When the Void Yaksha saw the two of them, he frowned. "Be careful. The handcuffs and shackles in their hands are tied to essence spirits and souls. Who's there to cause trouble in the Netherworld?" Black Impermanence's expression was dark as he glared at the martial Dao prime body and the Void Yaksha and said slowly, "Show us your true appearance." White Impermanence was all smiles. "We can just see it for ourselves." The moment White Impermanence spoke, a scarlet tongue descended and tore through the air, coiling towards the martial Dao prime body and the Void Yaksha. A nauseating stench approached. Black Impermanence attacked at the same time and flung the handcuffs and shackles in his hands forward. The martial Dao prime body could clearly sense a strange power that wanted to break through his Mara mask and descend into his consciousness. Ripples appeared on the Mara mask and many ghost faces appeared. The attacks targeting the essence spirit and soul could not break through the obstruction of the Mara mask. The Void Yaksha roared and tore apart his cloak. His spirit consciousness condensed at his glabella, and he was prepared. The martial Dao prime body did not move and merely channeled his spirit consciousness. Phew! A purple flame suddenly rose from Black Impermanence's handcuffs and shackles and White Impermanence's long tongue. Chapter 27-23, 27-23 Mount Baodu. 27-23 Mount Baodu. This was the martial spirit fire and was the most domineering. It was a killing move that specialized in burning essence spirits and souls among the many methods of the martial Dao prime body. Black and White Impermanences let out a tragic cry. The martial spirit fire burned extremely quickly and spread to the two of them in the blink of an eye, along White Impermanence's long tongue and Black Impermanence's handcuffs and shackles. Under everyone's gaze, a ball of martial spirit fire ignited on the bodies of the Black and White Impermanences, and they were burned to ashes before long, leaving only two hats that fell into the embers. When the many little ghosts of the Netherworld who came over after hearing the news saw that, their faces turned pale from fear. Those two were especially famous in the Netherworld, and the little ghosts had to refer to them as Lord White and Lord Black respectfully. To think that they would be burned to ashes by the purple-robed man in a few breaths. The flames were so domineering that although more and more little ghosts of the Netherworld gathered around, they did not dare to advance. The martial Dao prime body did not linger there. He brought the Void Yaksha and protected the soul of the Green Lotus true body. He tore through the void and entered the spatial tunnel, leaving the spot. Not long after the martial Dao prime body left, the two hats in the ashes suddenly floated in midair. Immediately after, two figures gradually appeared beneath the two hats and materialized. They were Black and White Impermanences who had just been burned to ashes. That was close. White Impermanence was still smiling, but his face turned even paler, as though he was frightened. Black Impermanence said, "I'll inform the Judge of Life and Death of the Netherworld to stop this person. There are naturally rules and regulations in the Netherworld. No living being outside the realm has ever dared to behave atrociously in the Netherworld. When he heard that, White Impermanence had a strange expression and said in a low voice, "It's not like there weren't any. That woman from before." Upon hearing White Impermanence's words, Black Impermanence seemed to have thought of something as well. His entire body jolted and he said with lingering fear, "That crazy woman appeared out of nowhere and caused a ruckus in the Netherworld. More than half of the 5 Ghost Emperors were killed. It's said that only one of the Ghost Emperors who fought her survived. It was Ghost Emperor Yang Yun who presided over Mount Luofeng. Ever since that battle, Ghost Emperor Yang Yun was respected among the 5 Ghost Emperors." That's right. How powerful must he be to be able to survive from that crazy woman? In the spatial tunnel, the martial Dao Prime Body wanted to send the soul of the Green Lotus True Body into his consciousness to protect it. However, the Dharmic Tao of the Heaven Burial Sutra flickered continuously on the soul of the Green Lotus True Body and resisted. Even the martial Dao Prime Body could not send it into his consciousness. The situation was urgent, and the martial Dao Prime Body did not have time to think and could only give up for the time being. "Where is the entrance to the 6 paths?" the martial Dao Prime Body asked. "I don't know the exact location either. Although I've heard some things about the Netherworld, this is my first time here." The Void Yaksha said, "Under normal circumstances, only souls can enter the Netherworld. It's impossible for living beings like us to enter the Netherworld." The martial Dao Prime Body nodded to himself. The reason why he and the Void Yaksha could come to the Netherworld was because the Hell Yellow Springs flowed between the Netherworld and the Hell World, and the world barrier was relatively weak. Otherwise, even with the Netherworld treasure mirror, he would not be able to pass through the world barrier and enter the Netherworld. Souls that entered the Netherworld would forget memories of their previous lives after being baptized by the Hell Yellow Springs. They would then enter the 6 paths of reincarnation. Therefore, the Netherworld had always been a mysterious and unknown place to all living beings in the 3 realms. The martial Dao Prime Body pondered for a moment before suddenly taking out an ancient bronze lantern from his storage bag. "What's this?" The Void Yaksha looked at the ancient bronze lantern curiously and instinctively wanted to reach out to touch it. "Don't touch it if you don't want to die," the martial Dao Prime Body said. The Void Yaksha pursed his lips and retracted his palm resentfully. The martial Dao Prime Body released the martial spirit fire and ignited the soul lantern. The soul lantern burned and released a golden halo. A golden flame jumped slightly before tilting in a certain direction. "Over there." The martial Dao Prime Body pointed in the direction where the flame had shifted. The soul lantern could absorb souls and refine them into lantern oil to replenish itself. The direction guided by the soul lantern was most likely the place where soul power was the strongest. Right then, a violent tremor came from the spatial tunnel and an immense and terrifying pressure enveloped down. The fact that the 3 of them could be discovered even when they were traveling through the spatial tunnel showed how powerful the person was. Immediately after, an extremely sharp edge tore through the spatial tunnel and sliced it into 2, cutting off the path of the martial Dao Prime Body and the other 2. "I'm the judge of life and death, Chui," a voice sounded. Before he could finish, the martial Dao Prime Body blew gently at the golden flame of the soul lantern, and a spark flew out through the crack of the spatial tunnel. "Ah!" A blood-curdling scream came from outside. Immediately after, the terrifying might vanished without a trace. "Chui?" The Void Yaksha grinned and clicked his tongue. Could it be Lord Chui, one of the 4 judges of life and death? The 4 judges are all ruthless people. The martial Dao Prime Body's expression was unchanged, as though he had done something insignificant. This time round, the way the Void Yaksha looked at Soul Lantern had already changed. Just a spark was enough to severely injure the 4 judges of the Netherworld and force them back. What was the background of this ancient-looking bronze lantern? The Void Yaksha's eyes flickered with excitement as he said in a low voice, "With this treasure, as long as we don't alarm the Lord of the Netherworld, we can do whatever we want in the Netherworld." The martial Dao Prime Body was silent. The soul lantern was his greatest reliance in the Netherworld. However, the Netherworld was too mysterious and there were countless unknowns to him. The soul lantern was only an external object after all. His cultivation realm was equivalent to an immortal king, and it was still unknown how much of a chance he had against an expert like the Ghost Emperors with this soul lantern. Furthermore, the martial Dao Prime Body had a feeling that this soul lantern was most likely related to the Netherworld. Mount Baodu. This was one of the 5 ghost mountains and was located in the middle of the Netherworld. Suddenly, a gigantic spatial rift opened in the sky above Mount Baodu and 3 figures appeared, descending slowly. Where am I? The martial Dao Prime Body looked over and saw that the surroundings were sinister. Although there were many trees and vegetation, they could not hide the sinister aura. It must be one of the 5 ghost mountains. The Void Yaksha pointed down and said, "Look, the entrance to the 6 paths is right there." At that moment, the martial Dao Prime Body and Green Lotus True Body lowered their heads at the same time. When they saw an extremely shocking scene, they could not help but be stunned on the spot. A gigantic vortex abyss appeared beneath the 3 of them. Clouds surged and spread in all directions endlessly. The gigantic vortex clearly had 6 different regions and was filled with strange runes that came from the same source as the runes of the Yin Yang Talisman Sutra and 9 Springs Hell Sutra. Chapter 27-24, 27-24 Truth of the 6 Paths. 27-24 Truth of the 6 Paths: Heaven, Human, Asura, Demon, Ghost, and Hell. Translated, the 6 strange runes on the 6 regions of the gigantic vortex corresponded to the dharmic Daos of the 6 paths. The 2 true bodies had already comprehended a supreme divine power, the 6 paths of reincarnation. However, neither of the 2 true bodies could unleash the true power of the 6 paths of reincarnation. It was said that the 6 paths of reincarnation was a peerless divine power. However, for many years, no one could unleash the true power of the 6 paths of reincarnation. That was why it gradually became a supreme divine power. It was only when the martial Dao Prime Body saw the scene before him did he come to a realization. The 6 paths of reincarnation comprehended by the 2 true bodies, as well as the living beings of the medium Kiliacosm, was worlds apart from the true 6 paths before him. Only by witnessing the 6 paths of reincarnation personally could one completely comprehend its true meaning and unleash its true power. If they could not witness it with their own eyes, they would never be able to feel the emotional shock brought about by the 6 paths of reincarnation. It was no wonder that no one had been able to unleash the complete power of the 6 paths of reincarnation for so many years. That was because no one could come to the Netherworld and see the scene of the 6 paths of reincarnation with their own eyes. The Green Lotus True Body looked at the 6 paths of reincarnation beneath him and unlearned all the 6 paths he had comprehended. He comprehended again and was in a daze, entering a state of epiphany. Right then, incomparably domineering auras rose around them. Their descent on Mount Baodu had finally alarmed the experts of the Netherworld. "Let's go," the Void Yaksha urged hurriedly. "I have a feeling of trepidation. This ghost mountain must be presided over by a ghost emperor." The martial Dao Prime Body glanced at the Green Lotus True Body, who was in an epiphany, and frowned slightly. Such an opportunity was extremely rare. Once interrupted, it would be extremely difficult for the Green Lotus True Body to comprehend the 6 paths of reincarnation. "Let's wait a little longer." The martial Dao Prime Body took a deep breath of air and looked at the phantoms that rose continuously as he said in a deep voice. The Void Yaksha was a little anxious and nervous, but he did not escape alone. Who dares to behave so audaciously in the Netherworld? Not far away, a ghost king stood in midair and hollered at the martial Dao Prime Body and the other 2. The Void Yaksha grinned slightly and laughed. "The 3 of us barged into this place unintentionally. Everyone, don't be nervous. We'll leave immediately." "Humph," another ghost king said. "You still want to leave? Do you think you can come and go as you please in the Netherworld?" "Stop them." Right then, another voice sounded. They just injured the black and white impermanences and severely injured Lord Shui. When that voice spread, countless ghosts in the Netherworld were enraged. The surroundings were filled with killing intent, and many Netherworld ghosts glared at the martial Dao Prime body and the other two with unfriendly expressions. "Take them down." A ghost king waved his hand and ordered. Instantly, countless phantoms appeared and pounced towards the martial Dao Prime body and the other two. When the Void Yaksha saw that the conflict with the Netherworld was inevitable, he could not help but curse internally. The spirit consciousness of the martial Dao Prime body moved and released the martial Dao Purgatory without hesitation, enveloping the Green Lotus True Body and the Void Yaksha. Ah, ah, ah. Many phantoms charged into the range of the martial Dao Purgatory and let out tragic cries. Some phantoms were burned to ashes in an instant. Some phantoms relied on powerful methods to escape death from the martial Dao Purgatory. Although the martial Dao Purgatory was suppressed in the Netherworld, the Dermic Dao contained within could still defend against countless ghosts and suppress ghost kings of the same cultivation realm. The moment the battle broke out, many Netherworld ghosts were severely injured and could not break through the domain of the martial Dao Prime body. Humph! Right then, a cold laugh sounded. "How dare you be so arrogant on Mount Baodu of the Netherworld? You're truly tired of living." The moment he said that, a powerful and cold spirit consciousness pressure descended. Shing, 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 shing. The flames in the martial Dao Purgatory could not withstand it and were extinguished by more than half in the blink of an eye, emitting a strange sound. Spirit consciousness of the Emperor Realm. Only the power of the Emperor Realm could suppress the domain of the martial Dao Prime body. Back in the Hell World, the power of a quasi-emperor could already impact the minor martial Dao domain, let alone the might of a true emperor. The next moment, the vision of the martial Dao Prime body darkened. Above his head, a phantom shadow appeared and lowered its head slightly. A malevolent and terrifying ghost face arrived above the martial Dao Purgatory and blew gently. Shing! A sinister wind blew past. The flames in the martial Dao Purgatory were extinguished by the phantom in a single breath. The Ghost Emperor's methods were terrifying. Ghost Emperor of Mount Baodu, Zhou Qi. The Void Yaksha gasped and cried out. Ghost Emperor Zhou Qi, who presided over Mount Baodu, was also known as the Central Ghost Emperor. He was the leader of the 5 Ghost Emperors and was second only to the Lord of the Netherworld. However, for some special reasons, the reputation of Ghost Emperor Yang Yuan of the North had already surpassed Zhou Qi's over the years. Oh! The phantom seemed to be surprised. His gaze landed on the Void Yaksha. "Little Yaksha, you're pretty sharp to be able to know my name. You're a Void Yaksha. Why did you come to the Netherworld instead of staying obediently in the Ghost World?" Ghost Emperor Zhou Qi could tell the origin of the Void Yaksha at a glance and asked. The Void Yaksha had a hesitant expression as he glanced at the martial Dao Prime body, not knowing where to start. "Kill them first." Ghost Emperor Zhou Qi glanced at the martial Dao Prime body and Green Lotus True Body with a cold gaze and said indifferently, "How dare humans from the medium Kiliacosm behave so audaciously in the Netherworld?" When the Ghost Emperor attacked, the martial Dao Purgatory was already shattered. After Ghost Emperor Zhou Qi gave the order, countless ghosts of the Netherworld swarmed forward in a black mass, pouncing towards the martial Dao Prime body and Green Lotus True Body. The martial Dao Prime body had a calm expression as he flipped his palm and summoned the soul lantern from his storage bag. The golden flames burned and spread out a golden halo that protected the 2 true bodies. The moment many ghosts charged forward, they were enveloped by the golden halo. Accompanied by a tragic cry, they turned into nothingness instantly and were absorbed and devoured by the soul lantern. The golden flames of the soul lantern became even brighter, and the radius of the surrounding halo expanded. Even Ghost King experts would be devoured by the soul lantern on the spot and turned into lantern oil if they could not dodge in time, let alone ordinary Netherworld ghosts. Ghost Emperor Zhou Qi shuddered when he saw the soul lantern in the hands of the martial Dao Prime body. The gigantic phantom returned to normal quickly under the envelopment of the golden halo and transformed into a figure similar to the martial Dao prime body, standing at the edge of the golden halo. This lantern. Ghost Emperor Zhou Qi stared fixedly at the soul lantern in the hands of the martial Dao prime body with a bewildered expression and murmured softly, "How is that possible?" Chapter 2725. 2725 Ghost Emperor Yang Yuan. 2725 Ghost Emperor Yang Yuan. Right then, a figure in multicolored armor with a dignified expression and a golden halberd strode over from the east of Mount Baodu. As that person approached, a gigantic spirit consciousness might surged over. It was not inferior to Ghost Emperor Zhou Qi at all. Ghost Emperor Yulei of Mount Taoji in the east. On the other side, a middle-aged man who looked like a scholar rode a spirit beast over slowly. His gaze was wise as he stared at the ancient bronze lantern in the hands of the martial Dao prime body with deep thoughts. Ghost Emperor Wan He of Mount Boizhong in the west. At the same time, a third figure appeared. It was an expert with a dark expression and a fierce and sharp gaze like an eagle. Ghost Emperor Zi Ren of Mount Luofu in the south. The last person to appear was from the north. The man had disheveled hair and unkempt clothes. He walked over shakily with a wine gourd in his hands and raised his head to take a sip of wine from time to time with a dazed gaze. When the Ghost Emperors present saw this person appear, they did not say anything, clearly in silent acknowledgement of his identity. If not for that, it would be difficult to associate this man with the North Ghost Emperor. Ghost Emperor Yang Yuan of Mount Luofeng in the north. The Void Yaksha was secretly alarmed. The commotion was too great and all 5 Ghost Emperors appeared. The Netherworld was not like the Hell World. The Hell World was shattered and had entered the Dharma-ending era with no Emperor experts born. However, the Netherworld had always been presided over by Ghost Emperors. These 5 Ghost Emperors were the strongest among all the Ghost Emperors in the Netherworld. After the 5 Ghost Emperors descended, the gazes of 4 of them landed on the soul lantern of the martial Dao prime body. At first, there was a hint of surprise and shock in their eyes. However, before long, greed flashed through the faces of 4 Ghost Emperors. Only Ghost Emperor Yang Yuan of the north retracted his gaze after a casual glance at the soul lantern. He stood at the side and continued drinking. It was as though the soul lantern was not as important as the wine gourd in his hands. "It's the soul lantern." Ghost Emperor Zi Ren's eyes shone inexplicably as he said coldly. Ghost Emperor when he seemed to be surprised as well. "According to what I know, this soul lantern should belong to the Lord of the Netherworld. Why is it in this person's hands?" Ghost Emperor Zhou Qi raised his brow slightly. "No matter what, we have to retrieve this soul lantern first. How can the Emperor weapon of the Lord of the Netherworld fall into the hands of outsiders?" "Exactly," Ghost Emperor Yulei said as well. After the 4 Ghost Emperors said that, they glanced at Ghost Emperor Yang Yuan at the side. The latter was still drinking and did not seem interested in the matter. Seeing that the 4 Ghost Emperors were about to attack, the Void Yaksha hurriedly shouted, "Ghost Emperors, there's a misunderstanding. This is the newly conferred Lord of Hell of the Hell World. We're merely passing by the Netherworld, and we're not hostile." Ghost Emperor Zhou Qi sneered, "Lord of Hell?" The other 3 Ghost Emperors clearly did not believe it either. Ghost Emperor Zi Ren smirked. "It's fine if you're lying to others, but you want to bluff your way through in front of us? You're telling me a human from the medium Kiliacosm is the Lord of Hell? Well?" The Void Yaksha was speechless. "Attack!" Ghost Emperor Zhou Qi gave the order. The 4 Ghost Emperors attacked one after another, releasing immense soul power that crushed towards the martial Dao prime body. The martial Dao prime body's expression was unchanged as he raised the soul lantern and blew gently. The lantern oil in the lantern suddenly splattered and flew towards the 4 Ghost Emperors with a few golden sparks. The 4 Ghost Emperors were clearly wary of the power of the soul lantern and dodged one after another. Their soul powers could not break through the halo of the soul lantern either. The moment they entered the range of the golden halo, they turned into nothingness and was refined and absorbed by the soul lantern. The four Ghost Emperors exchanged glances and released their respective pocket netherworlds. Ghostly auras filled the worlds and phantoms flickered as they suppressed the martial Dao Prime body once more. This was the power of the Emperor realm. If he did not have the Soul Lantern, the martial Dao Prime body would not be able to defend against any Ghost Emperor, let alone the combined forces of the four Ghost Emperors. Right now, under the suppression of the four pocket netherworlds, the flames of the Soul Lantern flickered and could be extinguished at any moment. Once the Soul Lantern was extinguished, the martial Dao Prime body would lose his final reliance. However, at that moment, the Soul Lantern sensed the surrounding pressure and seemed to have been stimulated. It suddenly broke free from the hands of the martial Dao Prime body and floated in midair. The word soul in the lantern shone brightly, causing the flames of the Soul Lantern to intensify and spread into an even stronger golden halo. The spirit consciousness in the Soul Lantern awakened and counterattacked. The expressions of the four Ghost Emperors changed and their pocket netherworlds began to sway under the impact of the golden halo of the Soul Lantern. In reality, the cultivation realm of the martial Dao Prime body was limited. Given his martial spirit fire, igniting the Soul Lantern was not enough for him to fight against the four Ghost Emperors. However, the Soul Lantern had a huge restraining effect on the ghosts and souls of the Netherworld. That was the reason why the current stalemate was formed. The martial Dao Prime body and the Green Lotus True body were telepathically connected. As long as he could hold out a little more, the Green Lotus True body would awaken from his epiphany after comprehending the key to the 6 paths of reincarnation. Right then, Ghost Emperor Zhouqi looked at Ghost Emperor Yang Yun, who was still drinking at the side, and said in a deep voice, "Yang Yun, why are you still standing by idly at a time like this? This person comes from the medium Kiliacosm. How can he be allowed to behave so audaciously in the Netherworld?" Ghost Emperor Yang Yun sighed. "Even the four of you can't take down the power of the Lord of the Netherworld's Emperor weapon. So what if I'm included?" Ghost Emperor, when he said, "Brother Yang Yun, we all know your methods. I hope you can lend us a hand." Ghost Emperor Yang Yun was silent for a moment before finally raising his head. He looked at the martial Dao Prime body, who was surrounded by the four Ghost Emperors, with a look of pity. "The Netherworld is indeed not a good place. You shouldn't have come." Ghost Emperor Yang Yun shook his head gently and raised his head to drink a mouthful of strong wine. Thereafter, he spat out a mouthful of wine mist in the direction of the martial Dao Prime body. The wine mist emitted a strong wine fragrance and contained an incomparably powerful power that enveloped the flames of the Soul Lantern. Under the envelopment of the mist, the Soul Lantern seemed to be unable to defend against it, and the flames began to shrink continuously, as did the surrounding golden halo. The eyes of the four Ghost Emperors lit up as they pressed forward hurriedly, getting closer and closer to the martial Dao Prime body. The martial Dao Prime body narrowed his eyes slightly and looked at Ghost Emperor Yang Yun, who was not far away. Among the 5 Ghost Emperors, this person had the strongest cultivation and was unfathomable. He had to get rid of this person in order to escape from the current crisis. In the blink of an eye, the feet of the martial Dao Prime body stomped on the void and released an incomparably domineering power. He charged over and shattered the void, plowing out a gigantic crack. With just a single step, the martial Dao Prime body arrived before Ghost Emperor Yang Yun. Although he was facing an Emperor expert, the martial Dao Prime body at the Grotto Heaven realm still emitted a torrential aura and wanted to trample the Ghost Emperor beneath his feet. The martial Dao Prime body raised his Soul Lantern and burned it towards Ghost Emperor Yang Yun. Chapter 2726, 2726, Back to the Emperor's Tomb. 2726, Back to the Emperor's Tomb. Ghost Emperor Yang Yun's expression changed. This change was not because of the attack of the martial Dao Prime body, but for another reason. Ghost Emperor Yang Yun stared at the footwork released by the martial Dao Prime body in a daze. When he saw the attack of the martial Dao Prime body descend, his figure flashed and he vanished from the spot. Ghost Emperor Yang Yun resolved the attacks of the martial Dao Prime body with ease. The difference between the two of them was too great. The martial Dao prime body retreated hurriedly. After Ghost Emperor Yang Yun reappeared, he hung the wine gourd on his waist with a grim expression and his eyes regained clarity. He stared fixedly at the martial Dao prime body and asked slowly, "Who's that blood butterfly from the medium kiliacosm to you?" Before the martial Dao prime body could react, the four ghost emperors who surrounded him were shocked and their attacks paused. The martial Dao prime body was shocked and looked at Ghost Emperor Yang Yun in disbelief. He frowned and asked, "You know her?" The blood butterfly that Ghost Emperor Yang Yun was referring to was definitely Dao. However, the martial Dao prime body did not expect Dao's name to spread to the Netherworld. From the expressions of the other four ghost emperors, it was clear that they had heard of the blood butterfly as well. More than that, Ghost Emperor Yang Yun had a conflicted expression as he laughed self-deprecatingly. "She came to the Netherworld before." Pausing for a moment, he continued, "Furthermore, she's the only person in the medium kiliacosm who could enter the Netherworld alive and leave alive." The martial Dao prime body was silent. As his cultivation increased continuously and he got closer to Dao, he could sense how powerful and terrifying she was. However, he was curious as to how Dao came to the Netherworld and why she came here back then. Under normal circumstances, there was a laws barrier between the medium kiliacosm and the Netherworld. Given Dao's methods back then, she should not have been able to break through it. The Void Yaksha gasped when he heard that. There was actually someone in the medium kiliacosm who could enter the Netherworld alive and leave alive. Ghost Emperor Zhou Qi's expression was dark as he harumphed coldly and grit his teeth. That's because she was lucky. If the Lord of the Netherworld had attacked, she wouldn't have been allowed to start a massacre in the Netherworld. The martial Dao prime body was shocked when he heard that. Not only had Dao been here, she even started a massacre in the Netherworld. The Void Yaksha grinned with a pale expression. As though he could tell that the martial Dao prime body was puzzled, Ghost Emperor Yang Yun said, "The situation at that time was complicated, and it was hard to explain in a few words. She did not stay in the Netherworld for long, but she killed more than 10 emperors. Half of the 5 ghost emperors were killed by her. There were originally 10 ghost emperors who reigned over the 5 directions. In that battle back then, 5 of them died in her hands. Even now, those 5 positions have yet to be filled." The martial Dao prime body surveyed his surroundings. It was no wonder why the 4 ghost emperors were even more hostile towards him after hearing the words blood butterfly. However, he found it strange that Ghost Emperor Yang Yun's attitude towards him seemed to have softened. Ghost Emperor Yang Yun continued, "Back then, I tried to stop her and was severely injured by her. However, she did not kill me and spared my life." "Oh." The martial Dao prime body was surprised. Before she left a message. Ghost Emperor Yang Yun seemed to recall that scene again. "The fact that you're able to survive from me shall be your greatest honor." In reality, that was also the case. Back in the battle, only Ghost Emperor Yang Yun survived after encountering Dao, causing his reputation in the Netherworld to soar and even surpass the central Ghost Emperor, Zhou Qi. The martial Dao prime body was not surprised. Dao was the only one who could say something like that. Because Yang Yun mentioned that past, the Green Lotus True Body gradually woke up from his state of epiphany. Zhou Qi and the other 3 Ghost Emperors seemed to have noticed something amiss as well. Ghost Emperor Ziren frowned. "Yang Yun, since this person is related to the blood butterfly, we can't let him leave." Ghost Emperor Yang Yun shook his head and suddenly stopped. The mist that enveloped the soul lantern suddenly dissipated, and the flames of the soul lantern intensified, regaining its light. A golden halo spread rapidly and forced the 4 ghost emperors back. "Yang Yun, what are you doing?" Ghost Emperor Zhou Qi hollered. Ghost Emperor Yang Yun looked at the martial Dao prime body with a conflicted expression. "Back then, she spared my life. I'll let you off today as well." A Ghost Emperor Yang Yun did not know what relationship the martial Dao prime body had with Dao. However, he believed that someone who could use the aura of the Plow Heaven Stride and Dermic Dao would definitely have inherited the essence of Dao's Dermic Dao and would definitely be the person closest to her. "Thank you." The martial Dao prime body cupped his fists slightly. Yang Yun, do you know what you're doing? Ghost Emperor, when he said in a deep voice, not only is this person related to the blood butterfly, he's also from the medium Kiliacosm and even carries the Emperor weapon of the Lord of the Netherworld. If you let this person leave, you'll commit an unforgivable felony. Against the scolding of the four Ghost Emperors, Ghost Emperor Yang Yun did not mind at all. He took out the wine gourd once more and took a sip of strong wine before shrugging. Whatever, I don't care. Hurry up and leave. Now is the time. The Void Yaksha hurriedly sent a voice transmission to the martial Dao Prime Body's spirit consciousness and urged. The martial Dao Prime Body was also about to escape from the Netherworld with the Green Lotus True Body and leap into the Ghost World through the entrance of the Six Paths. However, something strange happened on the side of the Green Lotus True Body. Just as the martial Dao Prime Body wanted to leave with the Green Lotus True Body, mysterious Dermic Das burst forth from the latter and blocked him. Immediately after, the Green Lotus True Body soared into the skies under the guidance of the Dermic Das. Just as the martial Dao Prime Body was about to stop him, his heart skipped a beat. The two true bodies were telepathic, and this situation did not seem to pose a threat to the Green Lotus True Body. When the four Ghost Emperors saw that, they wanted to stop him as well. However, before the attacks of the four Ghost Emperors could descend on the Green Lotus True Body, they were blocked by the golden halo of the Soul Lantern. The Green Lotus True Body ascended extremely quickly and arrived in the firmaments in the blink of an eye. Immediately after, under countless gazes, a crack suddenly opened in the firmaments. Although the gap appeared for an extremely short period of time, the martial Dao Prime Body could still sense the aura of the medium Kiliacosm from it. To be precise, it was the aura of the Emperor's tomb. Well, the eyes of the martial Dao Prime Body lit up, and his reaction was extremely fast. He hurriedly sent the water of the hell-boundless springs obtained from Consort Yu into the hands of the Green Lotus True Body. Thereafter, the Green Lotus True Body was pulled into the crack. In the blink of an eye, the Green Lotus True Body vanished and the gap closed as well. The connection between the two true bodies was severed once more. However, the martial Dao Prime Body knew that there was a high chance that the Green Lotus True Body had obtained another huge opportunity. After knowing that the Green Lotus True Body was fine, the martial Dao Prime Body did not hesitate either. He brought the Void Yaksha and turned to leap into the ghost world of the Six Paths. His figure was swallowed by the six vortexes and vanished. With the protection of the Soul Lantern, even the four Ghost Emperors could not do anything to him and merely watched as he was devoured by the Six Paths. Chapter 27:27, 27:27 Resurrection, 2727 Resurrection. In the dark and cold starry sky, a gigantic tomb floated. Compared to the tomb, even some ancient stars were as insignificant as dust. The Emperor's tomb. A saintly middle-aged man in an ancient white robe stood by an isolated tomb with an already cold corpse lying beneath his feet. The corpse wore green robes and looked young with refined features. However, the power of the curse had already seeped into his body. Even after his essence spirit was shattered in his consciousness, it was still entangled by the curse, and he had no chance of survival. What a pity! The middle-aged man lowered his head and looked at the corpse by his feet. He shook his head gently and murmured, "Even the grade 12 creation Green Lotus body could not defend against the devouring of the two curses." After a long time, the middle-aged man said, "Forget it. There's an emperor and many Grotto Heaven Realm cultivators here to accompany you in death. Burying you here won't be a disgrace to your bloodline." As he said that, the middle-aged man waved his robes and blasted a human-shaped pit in the hard soil beside him, sending the corpse beside him into it. Right then, a dermic Dao light burst forth from the corpse and gradually resonated with the entire Emperor's tomb, fusing into one. The middle-aged man exclaimed softly with a strange expression and whispered, "He actually cultivated the Heaven Burial Sutra?" Before he could finish his sentence, the dermic Dao on the corpse worked. Like a gigantic vortex, the corpse began to absorb a certain power from the emperor's tomb crazily. A trace of life appeared in the originally lifeless corpse. As time passed, the life force in the corpse became clearer and stronger, as though the corpse was showing signs of revival. The middle-aged man was not surprised by that. However, the pity in his eyes did not disappear. Instead, it became even more obvious. After cultivating the Heaven Burial Sutra and coming to this emperor's tomb, you can indeed revive with the power of the emperor's tomb. The middle-aged man looked at the corpse in the pit and shook his head. Unfortunately, even if your soul returns to the world of the living, you won't be able to escape the damage of the two curses. In the middle-aged man's opinion, the scene before him was nothing more than a final moment of lucidity. After this young man revived, he had to be killed by the two curses and experience the process of death once more. That was way too cruel. If he died once more, even the taboo mystic classic, the Heaven Burial Sutra, would be useless. The middle-aged man merely stood at the side silently without saying anything or interrupting the process of the young man's resurrection. After an unknown period of time, the corpse in the huge pit had already recovered its vitality. The next moment, a crack appeared in the void and a wisp of soul returned to the corpse through it. Immediately after, the corpse trembled gently. Suddenly, the green-robed man lying inside opened his eyes. The person who revived in the emperor's tomb was Su Zimo. This feeling was way too strange and indescribable. He was clearly dead, but now, he had revived in the emperor's tomb. Furthermore, everything he saw and experienced in the Netherworld did not seem like an illusion at all. It was still vivid and memorable. The shock brought to him by the 6 paths of reincarnation was still unforgettable. Little ghosts of the Netherworld, black and white impermanences, the judges of life and death, the 5 ghost emperors, and the martial Dao prime body. There were also the unimaginable encounters that the martial Dao prime body experienced in the hell world. There was no way these things were illusions. Su Zimo felt as though he had just woken up from a long dream after a nap. Of course, there was another most important thing that could verify that this was not an illusion. He had brought back the water from the hell-boundless springs from the hands of the martial Dao prime body, and it was now in his consciousness. Su Zimo realized that he had not died at all. His soul had only walked around the Netherworld's Death's Door and Yellow Springs Road. This experience was way too rare. His situation was countless times more advanced than a mere resurrection. It was difficult to awaken the memories of his previous life unless someone guided him. Furthermore, he had to cultivate again. But now, his soul took a spin in the Netherworld and returned to the Emperor's tomb. He fused with his essence spirit once more and controlled the grade 12 green lotus true body. There was no need for him to cultivate again, and his cultivation realm did not decrease at all. That was not all. In the Netherworld, his soul had once witnessed the 6 paths of reincarnation with his own eyes and comprehended the true meaning of the power of the 6 paths of reincarnation. As long as he cultivated and continued comprehending, he would be able to control the true 6 paths of reincarnation and unleash its power as a peerless divine power. Su Zimo sensed it carefully and realized that that was not the only change in his body. As his soul was going back and forth in the Netherworld, many strange changes seemed to have happened to the Green Lotus true body. An extremely rich life force surged from the body of the Green Lotus true body. Right now, that power was nourishing the bloodline of the Green Lotus true body, and the latter was growing rapidly. His cultivation realm rose at a visible speed as well. Before he was forced into the Emperor's tomb by the sect master of the academy, he had just entered the Perfected One realm, and his cultivation realm was only at the Convergence Perfected One realm. He merely condensed the black, earth, and heaven essences into a perfected essence. But now, according to the speed of the advancement of this realm, there was a high chance that he would advance to the next realm in a short period of time. The celestial being Perfected One realm. Su Zimo was pleasantly surprised. Although he still had many questions in his heart and did not know what was going on, this could be considered a blessing in disguise. Sigh. Right then, a sigh sounded from the side. It was a familiar voice. It was the voice he heard before he died. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. He was revived and noticed the changes in the green lotus true body. He was immersed in it and did not notice that there was someone standing not far away. Su Zimo stood up hurriedly from the huge pit and looked in the direction of the voice. He saw a saintly middle-aged man in an ancient white robe. The middle-aged man looked at him as well. However, his expression was complicated, and there was a hint of pity in his eyes. "Senior, are you immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight of the past?" Su Zimo hesitated slightly and probed. Before he fainted, when he heard that sigh, he recalled that the first time he entered the emperor's tomb, there was a remnant thought of an immortal emperor left behind. The voice of that immortal emperor's remnant thought was the exact same as this voice. Under normal circumstances, immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight should have died many years ago. Therefore, Su Zimo was still unsure when he saw the middle-aged man before him. "That's me." The middle-aged man nodded slightly. When he heard the middle-aged man admit it, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat even though he was prepared. Thereafter, he leaped out of the pit and bowed to immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight. "Thank you for saving me, Senior." Chapter 2728, 2728 Secret of the Emperor's Tomb. 2728 Secret of the Emperor's Tomb. In Su Zimo's opinion, the Emperor's tomb appeared in time and devoured him. Including the changes in Green Lotus True, the reason why he could be saved and revived was definitely because of immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight. Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight was probably the only person who could possess such shocking methods as well. Looking at Su Zimo, who thanked him sincerely with a grateful expression, the pity in immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight's eyes intensified as he sighed internally. This young man might not have realized that he was going to die again. However, this time round, he would not have the chance to revive. Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight did not know what to say for a moment. That was because he knew that the truth was way too cruel to this young man who had just been reborn and was filled with joy. "To be precise, I didn't save you." Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight shook his head gently. Su Zimo had a puzzled expression. There were only the two of them in the entire Emperor's tomb. Apart from Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight, who else could it be? Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight pointed to Su Zimo. "You saved yourself? Senior, please do explain." Su Zimo cupped his fists once more. Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight said, "You cultivated the Heaven Burial Sutra before?" "Yes." Su Zimo nodded. There was no need to hide this matter. "However, do you know why the Heaven Burial Sutra is called a taboo mystic classic?" Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight asked. Su Zimo recalled the Dharmic Tao of the Heaven Burial Sutra carefully and remembered an unforgettable experience in the Netherworld. Gradually, he revealed a look of realization. In the Netherworld, he once thought that the reason why the Heaven Burial Sutra could become a taboo mystic classic was because after a cultivator died, the Dharmic Tao did not dissipate and left an imprint on their soul. That way, the cultivator could awaken the memories of their previous lives even after their souls entered the Netherworld and the 6 paths of reincarnation. It was only at that moment that he understood. Even with his previous guess, he had underestimated the strength of the Heaven Burial Sutra. The Dharmic Tao left on his soul by the Heaven Burial Sutra was not for reincarnation at all, but for revival. It was for the sake of pulling his soul back into the world of the living from the Netherworld forcefully. When he saw that Su Zimo could comprehend the secret of the Heaven Burial Sutra so quickly, Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight nodded in satisfaction. But how is that possible? Su Zimo felt that this still did not make sense. He frowned and asked, "According to what I know, the Netherworld is an existence independent of the Trichiliocosm. There's a powerful laws barrier between the Netherworld and the medium Chiliocosm. It's very difficult to break through such a laws barrier. How could the Dharmic Tao of a single taboo mystic classic be enough to tear through the barrier of the Netherworld and drag my soul back here? The power of a taboo mystic classic is naturally insufficient." Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight pointed at his feet. "Don't forget where we are." The Emperor's Tomb, Su Zimo blurted out. Thereafter, he compared it to the Dharmic Tao of the Heaven Burial Sutra and gradually gained a realization. The Heaven Burial Sutra was able to break through the barrier between the medium kiliacosm and the netherworld and drag his soul back to the world of the living with the help of the burial intent in the Emperor's Tomb. The immense power obtained from Green Lotus' true body came from the Emperor's Tomb as well. Only this ancient Emperor's Tomb could provide such immense power that allowed him to advance a realm from the Convergence Perfected One realm in a short period of time and almost reach the Celestial Being Perfected One realm. Su Zimo pondered for a moment before asking, Senior Dawn Twilight, pardon me for being rude. This tomb was formed because of you. Although many experts have been buried over the years, the power of the Emperor's Tomb alone is not enough to break through the law's barrier of the two worlds, right? Su Zimo gradually understood the entire process. However, it seemed a little easy for the Heaven Burial Sutra to condense the power of the Emperor's Tomb and break through the barrier between the medium kiliacosm and the netherworld. My tomb. Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight suddenly smiled strangely. The curse in this tomb was indeed caused by me, but this tomb is not mine. Su Zimo was stunned. If this Emperor's Tomb was not the tomb of Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight, who else could it belong to? Whose tomb could have the power to penetrate the law's barrier of two worlds? Could it be the tomb of a great emperor? At the thought of that possibility, Su Zimo was shocked. Right then, Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight said indifferently, this tomb was originally the tomb of Great Emperor Longevity. Indeed, Su Zimo was secretly speechless. Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight said, it's not that simple to revive. Even if you cultivate the Heaven Burial Sutra, you won't get many chances. Since ancient times, how many people have been able to make use of the tombs of great emperors? Su Zimo nodded to himself. Initially, he thought that revival was possible just by cultivating the Heaven Burial Sutra. In that case, he would just impart the Dharmic Tao of the Heaven Burial Sutra to his family and friends so that they could live another life. However, from the looks of it, that thought was a little naive. It was easy for them to cultivate the Heaven Burial Sutra, but how could they find the tomb of a great emperor to appear at the moment of their deaths? According to what he knew, apart from the tomb of Great Emperor Longevity in front of him, there were only two others, the tomb of Great Emperor Heaven Burial in the Fiend Domain and the tomb of Great Emperor Infinite in Avicii. Suddenly, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as though something important flashed through his mind. The tombs of Great Emperor Longevity, Great Emperor Heaven Burial, and Great Emperor Infinite. Up till now, he had personally seen two experts who had died for many years but returned from the dead. One was Emperor Bo Sun, who died hundreds of thousands of years ago. Emperor Bo Sun revived in Avicii. However, in reality, that was the tomb of Great Emperor Infinite. The other was Fiend Emperor Apocalypse, who had died tens of millions of years ago. Fiend Emperor Apocalypse revived on the tomb of Great Emperor Heaven Burial. As for Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight before him, he had long died for many years, but was revived in this generation as well. Furthermore, he woke up in the tomb of Great Emperor Longevity. The way Su Zimo looked at Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight gradually changed. At the same time, some strange changes seemed to be happening to Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight. Initially, Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight looked at Su Zimo with a hint of pity. His expression was gentle, and he exuded a saintly aura. However, at that moment, Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight frowned with a dark expression, as though he had fallen into a strange state and was struggling continuously. There was an additional sinister aura on his body. If I'm not wrong, you've cultivated the Heaven Burial Sutra as well, Senior? Su Zimo took a deep breath of air and asked slowly. That's right. Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight's voice clearly became much colder. However, he clenched his fists and gritted his teeth, as though he was still holding on to something. In that case, it was not only Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight. Even Emperor Bo Sun and Fiend Emperor Apocalypse had cultivated the Heaven Burial Sutra. It was precisely because of this that the three of them could make use of the tomb of a great emperor to revive in this generation. Chapter 2729 2729 Martial Dao Aura 2729 Martial Dao Aura Su Zimo could not help but recall a catastrophe of the 10,000 races that Dao Lord Blood Fiend caused in Tianhuang mainland. At that time, Dao Lord Blood Fiend was extremely talented and relied on the help of Heavenly Wolf to create the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra, wanting to turn all the 10,000 races into the Blood Race and unify Tianhuang. The Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra was so terrifying that even the Green Lotus True Body and Dragon Phoenix True Body could not escape its influence. Only Monk Daming of the Buddhist monasteries could escape from the entanglement of the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra after sacrificing himself with Heavenly Fiend Dissolution. As a taboo mystic classic, the Heaven Burial Sutra was countless times more brilliant than the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra. Of course, the current situation was different from Tianhuang mainland. Although Su Zimo cultivated the Heaven Burial Sutra, he did not discover any problems or hidden ailments in this taboo mystic classic. The martial Dao Prime Body had browsed through the Heaven Burial Sutra as well and did not discover anything unusual. But now, it was probably not a coincidence that Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight, Emperor Bo Sun, and Fiend Emperor Apocalypse revived at the same time in this generation. Back then, these three emperors were all top emperors who were renowned. What was the purpose of them reviving in this generation? The current situation of Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight was extremely similar to when Bo Sun revived. It was as though they had fallen into some kind of struggle and their minds were extremely unstable. Initially, Su Zimo thought that Emperor Bo Sun's situation back then was caused by a conflict between his Buddhist and fiend cultivation. From the looks of it now, there should be another reason for the situations of both Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight and Emperor Bo Sun. Right then, Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight took a deep breath and seemed to stabilize. He looked at Su Zimo. There's something you might not have realized yet. Although you've just revived, the curse in this tomb is still present and the Master Betrayal curse on you has not been removed. In other words, you're plagued by two curses and you'll still die. However, even the Heaven Burial Sutra can't save you this time round. You will truly die. In reality, Su Zimo was using the water from the Hell Boundless Springs to cleanse his essence spirit while he was conversing with Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight. Now, the curses in his Green Lotus essence spirit had already been removed and it had returned to normal. Su Zimo channeled the Hell Boundless Springs and continued to cleanse the Green Lotus True Body. As the two curses had already permeated every single inch of the Green Lotus True Body's flesh, it would take some time to remove them completely. Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight seemed to have noticed the abnormality in Su Zimo and was puzzled. He murmured softly, "You can actually remove the two curses in your body on your own?" With that said, Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight frowned, as though he had fallen into pain again. The aura on his body became extremely unstable. "Senior?" Su Zimo called out softly. He was a little nervous about this situation as well. Back when Emperor Bo Sun woke up, he pushed him straight into Greater Avicii. Su Zimo did not know what Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight would do after he woke up. "My Dao title is Dawn Twilight because I specialize in the Dao of Time." Suddenly, Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight said, "Comprehend it carefully. My Dermic Dao is all in the bell and drum." As soon as he finished speaking, Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight flicked his finger gently, as though he had struck an ancient bell. The sound of the bell was faint and endless. Then, Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight clasped his fingers, and the sound of a drum sounded. It was low, heavy, and oppressive. Su Zimo had experienced the Dawn Bell and Twilight Drum once in the secret ground of the Pure Magnificence Heaven. However, the Dermic Dao inheritance back then had been sealed for many years. The impact was different from now when it was released by Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight. Personally, amidst the continuous bell and deep drum sounds, Su Zimo felt that he had gained new comprehensions in time. Not only did the Dermic Dao of the Dawn Bell and Twilight Drum resonate with his fleeting moment, they gradually synthesized. Right then, the bell and drum sounds suddenly vanished. Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight's body was trembling violently, as well as he said in a low voice, "Young man, there will be a chaos in the medium kiliacosm. I advise you to escape as soon as possible and hide in the corners of the medium kiliacosm. Don't get involved, or else." Although Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight was good advice for Su Zimo, his tone had turned sinister. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Book Immortal Yunju had once mentioned to him that in the past era, there was a chaos that swept through the trichiliacosm and affected all living beings of the 10,000 races. And now, he was hearing it from Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight again personally. Could the revival of the three emperors in this generation have something to do with this chaos? Could it be that the legendary Fiend Lord would appear in this generation as well? Who was the Fiend Lord and where did he come from? Go, hurry and go. Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight's expression was dark. Suddenly, he waved his hand and urged Su Zimo to leave. Su Zimo surveyed his surroundings. Right now, he was in the Emperor's tomb. Given his methods, he could not tear through the void and leave. Suddenly, Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight attacked and tore the void beside Su Zimo. A tremendous suction force pulled Su Zimo into it. The next moment, Su Zimo disappeared from the Emperor's tomb. The last thing he saw was that Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight had already stopped struggling and trembling. He had calmed down and raised his head, looking at him indifferently with a cold gaze. Su Zimo could vaguely sense that Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight had already changed into another person at that moment. It was also because Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight had expected this that he passed down his Tao of Time and sent him out of the Emperor's tomb. Su Zimo drifted along with the void currents in the spatial tunnel. He was in a daze and did not know where he was. Given his strength, he could not control where he landed at all. He could only passively wait for a spatial node and take the opportunity to escape. In other words, he did not know where he would end up in this vast upper world of the trichiliacosm. In fact, if he was unlucky, he might even descend into the heavenly world again. After an unknown period of time, a dermic Tao fluctuation spread over from a spatial node in the spatial tunnel ahead. When Su Zimo sensed the fluctuation of the dermic Tao, a look of surprise and strangeness flashed through his eyes. That was the aura of the martial Tao. He floated in the void and could actually sense the aura of the martial Tao in the vast upper world. Without hesitation, Su Zimo released all his strength through the spatial node and charged out of the spatial tunnel. Phew! His vision cleared up and countless stars floated around him. Su Zimo was in the starry skies of the upper world. The environment and aura here were extremely unfamiliar and should be far away from the heavenly world. He looked over. At the end of the starry skies ahead, he could vaguely see a gigantic mountain that towered into the clouds. It stood tall in the starry skies and emitted an extremely sharp edge. Even from thousands of kilometers away, Su Zimo could still sense the killing intent emitted by the mountain peak. Mottled sword marks could be clearly seen on the stars around him. Chapter 2730, 2730 Sword World. 2730 Sword World. What a powerful sword intent. Su Zimo nodded to himself. The mountain peak was more than 5,000 kilometers away, and the sword intent emitted left sword marks on the ancient stars here. It was obvious that the stars around the mountain peak must have been sliced into dust by that powerful sword intent a long time ago. Could this be the sword world of the trichiliacosm? Su Zimo murmured softly in deep thought. Recalling the martial Tao aura he sensed in the spatial tunnel previously, he thought of someone and a look of joy flashed across his face. His eldest disciple, Baiming Shui. Baiming Shui cultivated the martial Tao, and her martial spirit was a sword. Baiming Shui's talent in the sword Tao could be said to be unprecedented. With the help of her sword-shaped martial spirit, her cultivation in the sword Tao advanced bravely, and her combat strength was extremely strong. Yunting was a rare monster incarnate of the sword Tao. However, in Su Zimo's opinion, If they were of the same cultivation realm, the outcome of a fight between Yun Ting and Baiming Shui might be unknown. The most likely place for Baiming Shui to ascend to the upper world was not the heavenly world, but the sword world. If anyone in the sword world cultivated the martial Dao, the most likely person would be Baiming Shui. As Su Zimo's eldest disciple and the #1 successor of the martial Dao, Su Zimo valued Baiming Shui immensely, and the emotions he poured into her far exceeded others. Although the taboo Kuan Pong, carefree, was his disciple as well, Su Zimo did not provide much guidance in terms of cultivation. Baiming Shui was the only one whom Su Zimo had stayed by her side for 3 years to impart the Dao personally, guiding her meticulously. In Tianhuang mainland, Baiming Shui did not disappoint and surpassed many experts. She caught up later on and attracted the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation to ascend to the upper world. However, it was unknown how far Baiming Shui had cultivated in the upper world. Su Zimo knew very well how cruel the cultivation environment of the upper world was, and did not know what Baiming Shui had experienced after descending to the sword world. His imagination ran wild as he walked towards the tall mountain peak ahead. Before long, more than 10 sword lights suddenly appeared in front of him and sped in his direction at an astonishing speed, closing in the blink of an eye. Su Zimo stopped in his tracks and sized up everyone opposite him. There were a total of 15 people who came. They were either carrying long swords on their backs, hanging sharp swords at their waists, or wielding long swords. Their eyes were sharp and the sword intent on their bodies was sharp. They were all sword cultivators. The 2 in the lead were a man and a woman. Their cultivation levels were at the perfected 1 realm, and the rest were heaven immortals. The man had a slender figure, wide palms, sharp brows, and starry eyes. He had an extraordinary bearing and was already at the celestial being perfected 1 realm. The woman was valiant and heroic. Her long hair was tied up, and she was tall with an extraordinary appearance. Her cultivation realm was at the convergence perfected 1 realm. When the man and woman stood together, they looked like a match made in heaven and were rather pleasing to the eye. As Su Zimo sized up the other party, the 15 sword cultivators were also checking on Su Zimo. This green-robed cultivator looked a little strange. His cultivation realm was not low, and he had already cultivated to the perfected 1 realm. However, there seemed to be a huge problem with his health as his face was withered and his aura was weak. Su Zimo's green lotus true body still retained a lot of the power of the Master Betrayal Curse and the Emperor's Tomb Curse. He was sent out of the Emperor's tomb by immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight rather suddenly and had yet to remove the 2 curses in his body. Therefore, he did not seem to be in a good state. "I'm Jian Chon." The leader cupped his fists towards Su Zimo and asked, "Fellow Taoist, where are you from? How should I address you?" Although it was their first time meeting, these sword cultivators were rather polite and were not arrogant or rude. Su Zimo returned the greeting and cupped his fists. "I'm from the heavenly world and my surname is Su." He was in a new and unknown situation after all. Out of caution, Su Zimo did not reveal his full name. The perfected immortal sword cultivator called Jian Chun smiled. As though he could tell Su Zimo's reservations, he did not mind and asked, "Fellow Taoist, why are you here this time round? Is the sword world ahead?" Su Zimo asked. "Yes." The woman nodded. Su Zimo said in a deep voice, "It's nothing important. I just happened to pass by and wanted to pay a visit to the sword world." Right now, he was at the perfected immortal realm. As a perfected immortal, no matter which world it was, he was considered an expert. As such, it was not strange for him to say that. Visiting the sword world? The woman had a strange expression as though she had thought of something. The sword cultivators behind him revealed strange smiles as well. A spirit consciousness fluctuation appeared between them and they communicated in secret. Actually, Su Zimo's words caused a misunderstanding among the sword cultivators. They thought that Su Zimo was implying he was here to find people from the sword world to spar with for experience. Prior to this, there were also paragons and monster incarnates from other worlds who came to visit and spar with sword cultivators of the sword world. However, they returned in defeat. In the sword world, the strength of sword cultivators could be unleashed to the limits. If one did not cultivate the sword Dao and came to the sword world to spar, they would definitely be suppressed. Jianshun smiled gently. Since you're a guest from the heavenly world, our sword world will naturally welcome you. However, Jianshun paused for a moment and looked at Su Zimo. Fellow Taoist, your aura seems weak and you don't seem to be in a good state. It's fine. Su Zimo waved it off. I'm just slightly injured. I'll be fine after recuperating. The woman reminded kindly, fellow Taoist Su, the sword chi in our sword world is strong and sharp. You're not a sword cultivator and your body is unwell. If you enter the sword world, you might not be able to withstand it. Oh. Su Zimo was slightly surprised. Jianshun looked at Su Zimo and nodded as well. Fellow Taoist Su, if you're not in a hurry, you can look for a random star outside and rest for a while. It won't be too late to enter the sword world after you recover. Su Zimo knew his physical condition. As long as Hell Boundless Springs cleansed the Green Lotus true body completely, he would recover to his original state. He missed Baiming Shui and wanted to enter the sword world as soon as possible to investigate. At that thought, Su Zimo said, "Thank you for your reminder, fellow Taoists. I'm fine." When the sword cultivators behind him heard that, they pouted. This person from the heavenly world is probably so stubborn because he thinks that we're looking down on him. All right, let him suffer a little. The few heaven, immortal sword cultivators communicated with their spirit consciousnesses. Jianshun and the woman exchanged glances and shook their heads helplessly. Jianshun turned slightly. Fellow Taoist Su, please? Su Zimo stepped forward and followed behind Jianshun and the perfected immortal woman, heading towards the tall mountain peak ahead. Fellow Taoist Su, how much do you know about our sword world? The woman glanced sideways and asked. I don't know much. Su Zimo coughed gently. In reality, he knew nothing about the sword world other than its name. The woman smiled. It's fine. Let me give you a simple introduction, fellow Taoist Su. Chapter 2731, 2731 Identity Known. 2731 Identity Known. Heaven and Earth Academy, Legacy Ground. In an elegant and simple cave abode, there was a fragrance. A beautiful woman closed her eyes and held a brush, drawing continuously on a piece of rice paper. On the woman's shoulder, a snow-white butterfly stood and flapped its wings gently, looking at the painting in front of the woman with disbelief in its eyes. Painting Immortal Imo Qing. Recently, she had been immersed in the painting, and it lasted for nearly a month. She was focused and did not open her eyes to look. She did not even rest, afraid that she would interrupt the painting process. On the drawing paper, there was only a human figure. Before that, more than half of the painting had been completed. Apart from his blank face, the figure's posture, actions, and even his eyes that were burning with purple flames were already depicted. As for Imo Qing, she was using the Fiend Figure-dermic Dao of the Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend diagram to attempt to divine Desolate Martial's true appearance and complete the painting. After a long time, Imo Qing gradually stopped writing and heaved a sigh of relief. The painting was finally completed. However, she still did not open her eyes. She was expectant, nervous, and filled with conflicting emotions. Painting continuously the past month had taken a huge toll on her mentally. Imo Qing closed her eyes and extended her slim finger, rubbing her glabella gently to relieve her mental and physical fatigue. "Little butterfly, why aren't you saying anything?" Imo Qing asked. The snow-white butterfly on her shoulder looked at the face on the painting in front of her and stammered, but did not say anything. Imo Qing smiled and teased. "Could it be as you guessed previously? Does Desolate Martial have a green face and fangs such that you're shocked by his fierceness?" No matter what, she still felt relieved after completing this painting. "I'm indeed shocked," the ice butterfly muttered. "However, it's not because he looks too scary." "Oh? In that case, why?" Imo Qing asked. "See for yourself," the ice butterfly said. Upon hearing the ice butterfly's words, Imoching was even more curious. She took a deep breath and paused for a long time before mustering her courage. She opened her eyes and looked at the painting in front of her. Imoching was stunned on the spot. The person in this painting, she was all too familiar with him. Junior brother Su of the academy? How could this be? On the portrait, a man was dressed in a purple robe and stood with his hands behind his back. His eyes were burning with flames, and everything about him was the stance of desolate martial. However, his face was that of Junior brother Su. Most importantly, Junior brother Su's face did not look out of place when matched with everything about desolate martial. It was almost a perfect match, as though he was desolate martial. Could it be that Su Zimo has a twin brother who looks especially similar? The ice butterfly asked softly. Imoching remained silent. Suddenly, she recalled the purple flames in Junior brother Su's eyes when he played chess with Chess Immortal Junyu in the room of Divine Firmament Palace. She recalled the various interactions between Junior brother Su and desolate martial back in Avicii. She recalled Junior brother Su's strange attitude towards her. There was only one possibility. Imoching clenched her fists slightly as anger suddenly rose in her heart. She glared at the portrait in front of her angrily and reached out to tear the painting that she had spent countless effort on into pieces. Junior brother Su, how dare you? Imoching was furious and embarrassed as she grit her teeth secretly. To think that I trusted you so much and asked you to hand the portrait to desolate Marshall, but you were actually... However, Imoching thought about it. This was Junior brother Su's secret after all. Once exposed, Junior brother Su's life might be in danger, and he could not even stay in Heaven and Earth Academy. It was understandable for Junior brother Su not to tell her such a secret. Imoching thought about it again. Even if you told me, would I leak the secret? Am I that untrustworthy to you? After thinking about it, Imoching was still a little indignant and burned the piece of paper that she had just torn cleanly. You're burning it just like that? The ice butterfly seemed to feel that it was a pity. Humph, Imoching said. What's there to see about this person? If you want to see him, you can see him every day. After saying that, Imoching tidied up briefly. Let's go and look for him. Let's see how long he can continue acting for. Imoching left the cave abode and sped towards the inner sect of the academy. After not coming out of seclusion for more than a month, the atmosphere in the academy seemed strange. Imoching frowned slightly. Under normal circumstances, the academy would not have changed much even if she had been in seclusion for 10 years or 100 years. But now, something seemed to have happened in the academy. Imoching did not think too much about it and continued walking towards the inner sect of the academy. Before long, she arrived at Su Zimo's cave abode. The cave abode that was initially Su Zimo's was already in ruins. It had collapsed, and the surrounding spirit fields and medicinal gardens were long destroyed. What happened? Imoching frowned. Right then, an inner sect disciple of the academy passed by not far away. However, he circled around this place from afar, as though he was afraid of something. In the blink of an eye, Imoching arrived before the inner sect disciple and intercepted him. When the inner sect disciple saw Imoching, he was stunned for a moment before bowing hurriedly. Greetings, senior sister Imoching. Yes. Imoching pointed at the ruins not far away and asked, What's going on? The inner sect disciple glanced over and looked at Imoching. He could not help but recall the rumors circulating in the academy about senior sister Imoching and that person before this. With a strange expression, he probed, Senior sister Imoching, you don't know yet. What happened? Imoching asked indifferently. The inner sect disciple said, That's the cave abode of the traitor of the academy. Naturally, we have to clean it up and abolish it as a warning to others. Nonsense. Imoching berated and frowned. That's Junior Brother Su's cave abode. Junior Brother Su is rank 1 of the Earth and Heaven rankings. How much glory has he brought to the academy? He condensed the 10th step of the Dao Heart Stairs and was accepted as an in-name disciple by the sect master. How can he be a traitor of the academy? The inner sect disciple pursed his lips and said disapprovingly, No matter how much glory he has, it can't hide his betrayal of the academy and his master. What nonsense are you talking about? When Imo Qing saw that the inner sect disciple was framing Su Zimo continuously, she was enraged and subconsciously released the might of a perfected immortal, enveloping this person with a cold gaze. The inner sect disciple shuddered and found it difficult to breathe. His face flushed red, and he felt extremely uncomfortable. "Senior Sister Imo Qing, please calm down," the inner sect disciple said with difficulty. "This matter has nothing to do with me. The sect master said it personally, and everyone in the world knows about it." "Senior Sister Imo Qing, if you don't believe me, you can," asked the sect master. When she heard that, Imo Qing felt uneasy and her face turned pale. After a moment of silence, Imo Qing released the person and grit her teeth. "I'll ask now. If you're lying, I'll definitely punish you severely by the Academy's rules." Chapter 2732, 2732 Standoff, 2732 Standoff. Imo Qing left the inner sect of the Academy and headed straight for the sect master of the Academy's Heaven and Earth Palace. Along the way, she pondered deeply. Initially, she did not believe that. However, when she found out that junior brother Su was desolate marshal of the Fiend Domain, she could not help but link the two things together. Could it be that her master had discovered junior brother Su's identity as desolate marshal of the Fiend Domain? Was that why he ousted junior brother Su, because he wanted to protect the orthodox way of slaying demons and fiends? If not for that, there was really no need for junior brother Su to break off ties with the Academy. Furthermore, her master's calculations were always flawless, and he knew everything from past to present. There was a high chance that he could deduce junior brother Su's identity as desolate marshal of the Fiend Domain. However, where was junior brother Su now? How was he? If her master had attacked junior brother Su, could he survive? Imo Qing did not realize it herself. Even though she thought that Su Zimo had already betrayed the Academy, she was not hostile towards him at all. Instead, she was deeply worried. Before long, Imo Qing arrived in the depths of the Legacy Ground. An ancient and mysterious palace could be vaguely seen in the clouds ahead. Without hesitation, Imo Qing took a deep breath and declared loudly, "Master, I'm Imo Qing. Please allow me to meet you." Before long, a voice sounded from the palace. "Come in." The next moment, the clouds descended and condensed an arched bridge between Imo Qing and Heaven and Earth Palace. Imo Qing followed the arched bridge and entered Heaven and Earth Palace. The moment she stepped into the palace, Missouri Qing was stunned. Apart from the sect master of the Academy sitting cross-D in the middle of Heaven and Earth Palace, there was also a one-armed man who emitted a faint rancid aura. The sharpness of this person was gone, and his eyes were much dimmer. It was Sword Immortal Yu Hua, who was severely injured by desolate marshal of the Fiend Domain's eternal damnation at the Nine Firmament meet. Although Sword Immortal Yu Hua was saved by the powerful methods of the sect master of the Academy, his injuries had yet to recover. Apart from the fact that his severed arm could not be regenerated, there were still many wounds on his body that could not heal. Rotten flesh kept growing, which was why he emitted a rancid aura. Although Sword Immortal Yu Hua survived, he was like a broken sword. His will was despondent. Apart from Sword Immortal Yu Hua, there was another man in the palace. He stood upright with a sword-like gaze and exuded a noble aura. It was another legacy disciple, junior brother Yang Ruoxu. At that moment, Sword Immortal Yu Hua stood on the side of the sect master of the Academy with his hands by his side. As for Yang Ruoxu, he stood opposite the sect master of the Academy, and the atmosphere was tense. When the sect master of the Academy saw Imo Qing arrive, he nodded slightly with a smile. "Imo Qing, you're out of seclusion. You must be here for the matter of Su Zimo as well, right?" "Ruoxu came here for this matter as well. You came at the right time. If you have any questions, ask me and I'll answer them all." Imo Qing had a hesitant expression. "Master, I just heard an inner sect disciple slander junior brother Su. He said that he betrayed the Academy and his master." "That's not slander. Before Imoqing could finish, Sword Immortal Yu Hua interrupted. That's absolutely true. Imoqing looked at the sect master of the academy in confusion, wanting an answer. The sect master of the academy did not say anything and merely nodded gently. Imoqing's heart sank. At the side, Yang Ruoxu suddenly said, Sect Master, please forgive me for being rude. Yang Ruoxu was a legacy disciple, but he was not a personal disciple of the sect master of the academy. That was why he still referred to the latter as sect master. Yang Ruoxu's expression was dark. Ever since junior brother Su entered the academy, he saved his fellow sect mates in the trial of the 10,000-year meet. In fact, for the sake of his fellow sect mates, he went on a killing spree in the trial and killed a reincarnated perfected immortal. Later on, he obtained rank 1 on the Earth ranking. Thereafter, at the Divine Firmament meet, he was framed by senior brother Yu Hua and the others. You were the one who protected him then, Sect Master. He did not let the academy down and obtained rank 1 of the heaven ranking later on. Junior brother Su condensed the 10th step on the Dao Heart Stairs. It was an unprecedented achievement. Ever since junior brother Su joined the academy, he has not let the academy down or done anything to harm it. I don't understand how he could have betrayed the academy. Yang Ruoxu's question was extremely direct and did not hide anything. One had to know that it took immense courage to ask such questions to the sect master of the academy. At the very least, Imoqing did not dare to ask so directly. Of course, those were also the same doubts in her heart. However, there was a high chance that junior brother Su would betray the academy if the sect master of the academy knew about his identity as desolate marshal of the fiend domain. How dare you? Sword Immortal Yu Hua extended his single arm and pointed at Yang Ruoxu, saying fiercely, Yang Ruoxu, are you suspecting the sect master? I wouldn't dare. Yang Ruoxu shook his head gently. I'm just puzzled and want to ask for the truth. Sect master, please enlighten me. Sword Immortal Yu Hua was about to curse again when the sect master of the academy waved his hand gently with a conflicted expression. He sighed gently. I feel extremely regretful about this as well. It's difficult to judge a book by its cover. I didn't expect this lad to be innately rebellious. He actually harbored killing intent towards me, committing the crime of betraying his master. The sect master of the academy was not lying about that. Back then, Su Zimo had indeed wanted to kill him. Yang Ruoxu frowned. A hint of confusion flashed through Imoqing's heart as well. From the looks of it, the sect master of the academy should not know junior brother Su's identity as desolate marshal of the fiend domain. Otherwise, there was no need for the sect master of the academy to hide this matter. However, if not for his identity as desolate marshal of the fiend domain, why would junior brother Su have a conflict with the sect master of the academy? This did not make sense. Yang Ruoxu pondered for a moment before asking, Sect master, junior brother Su's cultivation is only at the heaven immortal realm. Even if he obtains some huge opportunity and becomes a perfected immortal, the difference between him and you is worlds apart. I don't understand why junior brother Su would harbor killing intent towards you unless he wants to commit suicide. Before the sect master of the academy could speak, Sword Immortal Yu Hua said coldly, Yang Ruoxu, you've questioned the sect master of the academy time and time again. Don't tell me you want to betray the academy and betray your roots as well. Senior brother Yu Hua, this has nothing to do with you. Yang Ruoxu glared at him. You don't have to scare me or pin those charges on me. Although his cultivation realm could not compare to Sword Immortal Yu Hua, he was fearless against Sword Immortal Yu Hua and the sect master of the academy with his righteousness. Yang Ruoxu took a deep breath of air and glared at the sect master of the academy once more with a resolute gaze. Sect master, I've heard some rumors. It's said that junior brother Su's bloodline is the grade 12 creation Green Lotus. After he advanced to the perfected immortal realm, he attained greater mastery of the creation Green Lotus body. I heard that you attacked junior brother Su because you wanted the bloodline of the grade 12 creation Green Lotus, sect master. Junior brother Su only betrayed the academy and his master because he was left with no other choice. After the sect master of the academy spread the news of Su Zimo betraying the sect and his master, Lin Zhan and immortal Queen Ling Long spread the actual truth of the events as well. Su Zimo's green lotus true body was already buried in the emperor's tomb. Naturally, Lin Zhan and immortal Queen Ling Long did not wish for him to be defamed as well. The world would decide on its own as to who was in the right and who was in the wrong. When Imo Qing heard that, she shuddered. She did not believe that junior brother Su would betray the sect and his master for no reason. However, things might make sense if what young Ruoxu said was the truth. Chapter 2733, 2733 Whereabouts of Xiaoning. 2733 Whereabouts of Xiaoning. In the academy, due to the supreme might of the sect master of the academy, even if someone heard those rumors, no one dared to discuss it, let alone reveal them in front of the sect master of the academy. No one dared to question the sect master of the academy. Young Ruoxu was the only one. There were many disciples in the academy, but only young Ruoxu could cultivate the Righteousness Sutra to greater mastery. After young Ruoxu said that, heaven and earth palace suddenly fell into a deathly silence. The atmosphere was solemn and suffocating, even filled with a murderous intent. Imo Qing glanced at young Ruoxu with a worried expression. There was a high chance that the sect master of the academy could cripple and expel him from the academy just because of what he just said. However, that would confirm the rumors even more. Young Ruoxu stood upright and looked at the sect master of the academy fixedly. His gaze was even a little rude, wanting to find an answer from the sect master's gaze and expression. Unfortunately, the sect master of the academy was silent. His eyes were calm when he heard his question. Nothing could be read from the sect master of the academy. "Are you suspecting me?" The sect master of the academy asked slowly with a calm gaze. "I wouldn't dare." Although young Ruoxu said that he did not dare to, his tone did not show any weakness. He said in a deep voice, "I just want the truth. Does the truth matter?" "Yes." The two of them looked at each other without backing down. The sect master of the academy smiled gently and waved his hand. "Since you don't believe me, go and seek the answer yourself." Young Ruoxu looked at the sect master of the academy deeply. "I'll definitely do that. Even though junior brother Su is dead, I have to uphold justice for him." With that said, young Ruoxu turned to leave. Imo Qing's expression changed. Although she already had a bad feeling, she was still shocked when she heard the news of junior brother Su's death. "Master, is junior brother Su really?" Imo Qing's voice trembled. Sword Immortal Yu Hua frowned. "Junior sister, why are you still referring to him as junior brother Su? He's just a bastard who betrayed his master and roots. Karma came for that bastard and he was devoured by the emperor's tomb, buried within." Imo Qing's figure swayed slightly. "I understand." A moment later, Imo Qing lowered her head and said, she turned to leave Heaven and Earth Palace and walked towards her cave abode in a daze. Heaven and Earth Palace. After young Ruoxu and Imo Qing left, Sword Immortal Yu Hua asked the sect master of the academy, "Master, young Ruoxu spoke rudely to you earlier on. Why didn't you kill him? At the very least, according to the sect rules, you could have crippled and expelled him from the academy." "He's just a naive ant." The sect master of the academy said indifferently, "Su Zimo died in the emperor's tomb, and there's no evidence. He wants to find the truth? How can there be truth in the world? As long as I wield enough power, wouldn't the truth just be anything I want it to be? I let him stay in the academy to let him know that everything he obtained was given by me. Since I can give it to him, I can take it all back as well." Sword Immortal Yu Hua understood. "I understand." "Yes." The sect master of the academy nodded slightly and praised. "How obedient." Green Firmament Immortal Domain, Battle Kingdom. Lin Zhan and immortal Queen Ling Long sat in the main hall with faint worry on their faces. The matter of Su Zimo betraying Heaven and Earth Academy and dying in the Emperor's tomb was still brewing in the Nine Firmament Immortal Domain. Although they spread the truth of the matter outside, it did not cause much of a stir. Immortal King Qingyang, King Jin and the others who were involved naturally would not admit to this. Instead, they declared at the same time that Su Zimo was a traitor of the academy. That way, they had sufficient reason to fight against Lin Zhan when they descended upon the Battle Kingdom previously. Su Zimo came from the lower worlds and had no backing in the Nine Firmament Immortal Domain at all. As time passed, most cultivators were still inclined to believe in Heaven and Earth Academy. Suddenly, Lin Zhan asked, "There's still no movement from the Grand Firmament Immortal Domain?" "I'm not sure." Immortal Queen Ling Long shook her head gently. "Logically speaking, the news I sent out has already reached Immortal Emperor Grand Firmament. Could it be that Immortal Emperor Grand Firmament doesn't intend to pursue this matter?" Lin Zhan frowned. Immortal Queen Ling Long shook her head. "It doesn't make sense. The Grand Pure Jade Manual is of great importance and is one of the taboo mystic classics. Furthermore, his son was even killed by the sect master of the academy. He shouldn't let the matter rest." Although that was the case, there was no movement in the Grand Firmament Immortal Domain in the end. Zixin Immortal Kingdom, Library. When the news of Su Zimo betraying Heaven and Earth Academy and dying in the Emperor's tomb spread, Lu Ping finally realized why Su Zimo arranged for him and Tao Yao to come to the Zixin Immortal Kingdom back then. This was to protect the two of them. Lu Ping was furious about that. He had followed Su Zimo for an extremely long time and believed that there was definitely no way he would betray the academy and his master. There had to be a reason behind it. On the other hand, Tao Yao seemed relatively calm. That was because he knew that even if the Green Lotus True Body died, Su Zimo still had a martial Dao Prime body who could kill his way back to the heavenly world in the future. Yunju calmed down quickly as well. She also knew of the existence of the martial Dao Prime body and believed that one day, Su Zimo would make a comeback and descend on the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain. On this day, she received a message from a trusted aide. When she saw that news, Yunju had a conflicted expression and sighed gently. Prior to this, Su Zimo had asked her for a favor. He wanted to find the whereabouts of a cultivator named Su Xiaoning. The news stated that Su Xiaoning's whereabouts had been found in the Elixir Firmament Immortal Domain. Unfortunately, Su Zimo was already dead. As for Desolate Marshal of the Fiend Domain, she could not contact him. After pondering for a moment, Yunju wrote a message and sent it back. She did not mention much inside other than for the person to take care of Su Xiaoning secretly and not show his face for the time being. Su Xiaoning had already settled down in the Elixir Firmament Immortal Domain, and Yunju had no reason to bring her over to the Zixin Immortal Kingdom. Furthermore, to Su Xiaoning, the Elixir Firmament Immortal Domain was more suitable for her cultivation. After pondering for a long time, Yunju took out another messenger talisman and wrote something. "Little brother, after you left, something major happened in the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain. Su Zimo's creation Green Lotus bloodline was exposed, and he was surrounded and killed by the sect master of the academy and the others. In the end, he was forced into the Emperor's tomb and buried there. Since you've already settled down there, cultivate in peace and strive to return as soon as possible. Everything will be fine for us. Don't worry." Thereafter, Yunju sent out the messenger talisman and vanished in the blink of an eye. Although Yunting and Su Zimo had fought twice before, Yunju knew that the two of them appreciated each other. In Yunting's heart, he had always regarded Su Zimo as his greatest rival and not an enemy. In Yunju's opinion, this news should be told to Yunting. Chapter 2734, 2734 8 Sword Peaks. 2734 8 Sword Peaks. Sword World. Su Zimo followed Jinshan and the other sword cultivators towards the gigantic mountain peak ahead. Before long, they arrived. From afar, one could only see this mountain peak. In reality, this place was an endless continent. On this land stood a mountain that emitted endless sharpness that pierced through the starry skies. "Fellow Taoist Su," Jinshan said, "in our sword world, there's a saying that there are 8 sword peaks. The mountain you're looking at now is one of the 8 sword peaks, Carnage Sword Peak." Every single sword peak is the core of a sword continent. Su Zimo nodded to himself. In other words, there were 8 gigantic sword continents connected to each other in this starry skies, forming the current sword world. Please follow me. Jian Shen's figure rose continuously, and Su Zimo followed closely behind. Before long, the two of them arrived at the top of the starry skies. From this angle, they could look down on everything in the sword world. In Su Zimo's vision, he could see 8 gigantic continents connected at the edge of the starry skies. On every piece of continent stood a mountain peak similar to Carnage Sword Peak. However, the shape of every mountain peak was different, and the sword chi and sword intent emitted were also different. Su Zimo was too far away from the other mountain peaks and could not sense them clearly. In the middle of the 8 sword continents, there was an even larger piece of land with tens of thousands of mountain peaks standing on it, piercing the continent like gigantic swords. That's Myriad Sword Palace. Jian Shen pointed at the land surrounded by the 8 sword peaks. That's also the core region of our sword world. Outside cultivators can't enter. I'm sorry. Su Zimo nodded slightly in understanding. In his vision, he could vaguely sense a mysterious and powerful formation between the 8 sword peaks and Myriad Sword Palace. Once a particular sword peak was attacked, the sword formation would be triggered immediately and circulate, releasing a powerful counterattack. Fellow Daoist Su, how do you feel? The perfected immortal woman at the side could not help but ask. What? Su Zimo was slightly stunned and did not understand the woman's words. The woman had a strange expression as she sized up Su Zimo once more and asked, Fellow Daoist Su, are you feeling any discomfort? Su Zimo smiled and shook his head. In reality, the closer they were to the sword peak, the sharper the surrounding sword chi. There was also a universal object similar to the builder tree in the sword world that could gather heaven and earth essence chi in large quantities. However, the heaven and earth essence chi of the sword world was extremely special. That was because every single sword peak contained an extremely powerful sword intent sealed with an incomparably powerful dharmic Dao. Therefore, the heaven and earth essence chi gathered in the sword world transformed into extremely sharp sword chi after the baptism of the 8 peaks. When ordinary cultivators arrived here, they would naturally feel uncomfortable against the sharp heaven and earth essence chi. However, this heaven and earth essence chi was most suitable for sword cultivators to cultivate. If ordinary cultivators absorbed such sharp heaven and earth essence chi, their bodies and bloodlines would not be able to withstand it, and they would probably suffer from chi deviation. That was also the reason why the female sword cultivator was worried. When she saw Su Zimo's pale face and weak aura, she thought that he would not be able to withstand the heaven and earth essence chi of the sword world. However, not only did Su Zimo look normal, even the color of his face was recovering. To the green lotus true body, this sharp heaven and earth essence chi was no different from ordinary heaven and earth essence chi. The green lotus bloodline could devour and refine everything. Fellow Taoist, this way please. When Jian Shen saw that Su Zimo was fine, he was secretly surprised. Thereafter, he brought Su Zimo to Carnage Sword Continent. On this continent, Su Zimo followed everyone forward. Sword cultivators strode everywhere with sharp gazes. When the sword cultivators saw Su Zimo, they revealed curious expressions as well. Su Zimo pondered for a moment before suddenly asking, Fellow Taoist Jian Shen, does all the dharmic formulations cultivated in the sword world belong to the immortal Dao? The reason why Su Zimo asked that was because he wanted to find out Bai Ming Xue's whereabouts. However, he did not know Bai Ming Xue's situation in the sword world and was worried that it would backfire if he probed rashly. Jian Shen said, Of course, it's not just the immortal Dao. In reality, the 8 sword peaks of the sword world represent 8 different sword Daos. There are cultivation techniques of the immortal Dao and fiend Dao. For example, there's a fiend sword peak among the 8 sword peaks. There's also Zen sword peak, another of the 8 sword peaks that cultivates the sword Dao of the Buddhist monasteries. The woman thought that Su Zimo was worried and smiled. In our sword world, there's no such thing as immortals, fiends, or Buddhas. Be it immortals, Buddhas, or fiends, they merely cultivate the sword Dao in the end. Apart from immortals, Buddhas, and fiends, are there no other dharmic formulations? Su Zimo asked once more. Other dharmic formulations? Jinshan frowned and shook his head. No. Typically, only human cultivators cultivate the sword Dao. As for the dharmic formulations of the human race, there are only immortals, Buddhas, and fiends. Right then, the woman's heart skipped a beat and she opened her mouth slightly, wanting to say something but hesitated. Sensing the change in the woman's expression, Su Zimo smiled and asked, "Fellow Taoist, what did you want to say earlier on?" The woman hesitated for a moment. Apart from immortals, Buddhists, and fiends, there's another dharmic formulation. When Jian Shen heard that, he revealed a look of enlightenment and could not help but laugh. Are you referring to that martial Dao? It's only an incomplete dharmic formulation and is not of any use at all. How can it be compared to the dharmic Daos of the immortal, Buddhist, and fiend sects? The woman said, although that's the case, junior sister Baiming's cultivation has indeed increased rapidly with the martial Dao. She's also the strongest among the ordinary disciples. What's the use of that? Jian Shun shook his head. Junior sister Baiming's upper limit is only the peak of the heaven immortal realm. She's so stubborn and has always cultivated the martial Dao. She has no hope of condensing a Dao fruit in her life and entering the perfected one realm to become a legacy disciple of the sword world. Sigh. At the mention of that, Jian Shun sighed gently. It's a pity for junior sister Baiming's talent in the sword Dao. That's right. The woman said regretfully as well. Even the peak master said that junior sister Baiming is the most talented sword Dao cultivator he's ever seen. That's not all, Jian Shun said. I heard that the 8 peak masters once persuaded her to give up on the martial Dao and cultivate from scratch. As long as she's willing to restart her cultivation, her future achievements would be limitless and she could join any of the 8 sword peaks. However, she insisted on that lousy martial Dao and refused to give up. That martial Dao doesn't even have a follow-up dharmic formulation. I wonder what she's still persevering for. The woman said, I heard that it has something to do with junior sister Baiming's former master. Bullshit. Jian Shan curled his lips. Junior sister Baiming came from the lower worlds. How incredible can her master be? He's probably even weaker than her right now. Chapter 2735, 2735 Martial Dao Inheritance. 2735 Martial Dao Inheritance. The woman nodded as well. That's true. Ever since junior sister Baiming ascended, the peak master has placed great importance on her and poured in a lot of effort. The supply of various cultivation resources has never stopped. If not for that, junior sister Baiming's cultivation would not have advanced so quickly. It's almost unprecedented in the sword world. Although junior sister Baiming's master ascended to the upper world, it's unknown if he could have survived in the cruel cultivation environment of the upper world, not to mention catching up in cultivation realm. When he heard that, Su Zimo smiled. The woman was right. Ever since he ascended, he had narrowly escaped death several times. His soul had entered the Netherworld and circled around the Death's Door and Yellow Springs Road. Su Zimo did not care about their contempt. What made him feel gratified was Baiming Shue's situation in the sword world. From the conversation between the 2 perfected immortals, he could roughly tell that Baiming Shue was doing well in the sword world and had a high status. The 2 perfected immortals surpassed Baiming Shue in terms of cultivation realm. However, the 2 of them did not look down on Baiming Shue at all. Instead, they felt pity for her. Ever since he ascended, Su Zimo had met a few old friends of Tianhuang mainland. Be it the Thunder Monarch and Human Monarch of the past or Demonist Ji, Yin Beichen, and the others of his generation, they had experienced unimaginable suffering in the upper world. Even he was forced to leave the heavenly world. And now, Su Zimo finally heard of an old friend from Tianhuang mainland who not only did not encounter any injustice or suffering when she ascended, she was even valued by experts of the upper world. Su Zimo was happy for Baiming Shue as well. Su Zimo asked, from what the 2 of you said, The sword world doesn't seem to look down on people who ascend from the lower worlds. Of course, the woman said, be it those who ascend from the lower worlds or those from the upper world. As long as they're in the sword world, we'll treat them equally. In the sword world, what we value is the talent and diligence of every sword cultivator regardless of their backgrounds. Jinshin looked at Su Zimo and said with a fake smile, that's different from the heavenly world you're in, fellow Taoist. I heard that you heavenly world people are not very friendly to people who ascend from the lower worlds. Su Zimo shook his head. I'm not from the heavenly world. I ascended from the lower worlds and descended into the heavenly world. Oh. Jinshan and the other sword cultivators revealed surprised expressions. Jinshan cupped his fists once more and said seriously, fellow Taoist Su, I didn't expect you to come from the lower worlds as well. It's truly rare for you to cultivate to the perfected one realm in an environment like the heavenly world. Even after hearing his background, Jinshan and the sword cultivators did not look down on him at all. Su Zimo had a good impression of Jinshan and the others and felt a sense of respect for the sword world as well. Right? Suddenly, Su Zimo asked, I have some understanding of the martial Dao that you guys were discussing earlier on. I wonder if you can bring me to take a look at that sword cultivator who cultivates the martial Dao? Fellow Taoist Su, you've also heard of the martial Dao? Jinshan was a little surprised. Su Zimo smiled and nodded. The woman said, actually, this martial Dao is not completely useless. I heard from junior sister Baiming that her master established the martial Dao so that all living beings of the lower worlds can cultivate and become immortals. This is admirable and possesses great merit. However, in the upper world, the martial Dao became inferior due to the difference in dharmic Dao levels. It's an incomplete dharmic formulation after all, and its achievements are limited. Su Zimo smiled without saying anything or arguing. All right, I'll bring you to meet junior sister Baiming first. At this time, she should be cultivating near the sword cleansing pool. Jinshin teased. The two of you have heard of the martial Dao and are from the lower worlds. Who knows, you might even know each other. Of course, Jinshan was just saying it casually. After all, there were billions of lower worlds like the sand of the Ganges River. How could there be such a coincidence that two people who ascended would know each other? Everyone changed their direction and headed in another direction. Along the way, Jinshin and the woman called Chu Xian even introduced the situation of the sword world to Su Zimo. Su Zimo also recounted some of the local customs of the heavenly world and the sects and factions. The distance between the sword world and the heavenly world was too far. Jinshan and the others had never been to the heavenly world and only had a rough understanding of it. This was the first time Jinshan and the others had heard of many things, and they were extremely curious. There were many similarities and differences between the heavenly world and the sword world. For example, there were only two types of distinction between disciples in the sword world: ordinary disciples and legacy disciples. All the sword cultivators of the black, earth, and heaven essence realms were ordinary disciples. Only after entering the perfected one realm and condensing a Dao fruit would one be considered a legacy disciple of the sword world and have a chance of heading to Myriad Sword Palace to cultivate an even better sword Dao secret skill. At the top of Carnage Sword Peak, sword chi was condensed to the extreme and materialized, forming a sword chi waterfall that flowed down. With that, a gigantic pool was formed at the foot of Carnage Sword Peak. In the sword cleansing pool, the sword chi was the sharpest. Furthermore, it contained the Carnage Sword intent of Carnage Sword Peak and could help sword cultivators temper and nurture their divine swords. Generally speaking, the power of the divine sword that cultivators carried with them would increase greatly after a baptism in the sword cleansing pool. Before long, everyone arrived at Carnage Sword Peak. From afar, fog rose from the towering peak of Carnage Sword Peak and a gigantic waterfall descended, emitting an incomparably violent sword chi with boiling killing intent. The sword chi descended from the skies and landed on the ground, emitting a series of shocking booms. Jinshin said, "Fellow Taoist Su, the sword chi ahead is too strong and the killing intent is extremely intense. Why don't we stand here and I'll send someone to call junior sister Biming over." At that moment, Su Zimo had a strange expression as he sensed the sword intent emitted by Carnage's sword peak. This sword intent was extremely similar to the three great sword arts he cultivated. To him, this killing intent was extremely familiar and was nothing at all. "It's fine. I'll go take a look." Su Zimo gave a faint smile. Jian Qin hesitated for a moment before nodding. Chu Xian said, "Actually, cultivators usually cleanse their weapons at the sword cleansing pool. Only junior sister Biming chose to cultivate here, saying that it's for the martial Dao. The sword chi here is violent and the killing intent is way too strong. After cultivators absorb it, it's extremely harmful to their bodies and won't do them any good." Su Zimo nodded to himself. He had indeed not misjudged her. Biming Xue was the most suitable person to cultivate and inherit the martial Dao. She was not like the martial Dao prime body who had the chance to read many high-grade cultivation techniques and smelt countless sutras and secret skills to comprehend and deduce the dermic formulations of the martial Dao. However, she did not go astray on the path of the martial Dao. The foundation of the martial Dao was the body. Only such a cultivation environment could purify and refine a powerful physique and bloodline. Chapter 2736, 2736 Master? 2736 Master. As everyone approached, they could see that many sword cultivators were gathered beside the sword cleansing pool. Most of them were baptizing and tempering their divine swords. There was only a young woman sitting cross-D on the limestone beside the sword cleansing pool. She placed a sword across her knees and was cultivating with her eyes closed. Although they had not seen each other for many years, Su Zimo recognized at a glance that the woman was Biming Xue. Compared to the lower worlds, Biming Xue was even prettier now and had an additional aura of iciness. Be it her looks or bearing, she was not inferior to the four great fairies. Beside Biming Xue stood a tall man in a white robe. He was spotless and his long hair fluttered with an extraordinary aura. The man placed one hand behind his back and leaned over slightly, as though he was trying to persuade Biming Xue. However, it could not be heard clearly under the roar of the sword chi waterfall. Su Zimo's spirit consciousness swept past Biming Xue, and he nodded to himself with a look of approval. Apart from him, Biming Xue was the fastest cultivator among the people of Tianhuang mainland who had ascended in this generation. At that moment, Biming Xue had already cultivated to the level 9 Fate Ring realm. As long as Su Zimo imparted the secret skill profundities of the martial Dao dermic formulation to Biming Xue, she would have a chance to advance to the true martial realm and condense the true martial Dao body. The Green Lotus true body had obtained so many opportunities and fortuitous encounters. Even so, he had only cultivated to the Convergence Perfected One realm right now, and was about to break through to the Celestial Being realm. As for Biming Xue, her cultivation realm was not much lower than his. From the looks of it, Jinshan and the others were not exaggerating at all. Biming Xue must have received a lot of attention in the sword world. Countless cultivation resources were accumulated alongside fortuitous encounters, and her talent allowed her to reach this step. Su Zimo's spirit consciousness swept past the man beside Biming Xue. Paradise Void Perfected One realm. The Perfected One realm was divided into Convergence, Celestial Being, Hollow Nether, and Paradise Void. This man had already cultivated to the peak of the Perfected One realm and was on the same level as Sword Immortal Yu Hua, Chess Immortal Yun Zhu, and the others. The man seemed to have sensed something and turned to look in Su Zimo's direction. Sword light flashed through his eyes. He's an expert, Su Zimo thought to himself. The sharpness of that person's body was restrained. It was clear that he had already cultivated the sword Dao to a simple and ingenious realm. The sword light in his eyes was flickering with a hidden sharpness, and he could release a powerful attack at any moment. Su Zimo had just entered the Perfected One realm and had yet to fight against perfected immortal experts. However, the martial Dao prime body had fought many perfected immortal experts before, and he was no stranger to the depths of them. A look of reverence flashed across Jian Qin's face. This is our eldest senior brother of Carnage Sword Peak, Wang Dong. He's also the #1 sword immortal of Carnage Sword Peak. Greetings, senior brother. Jin Shun and the others greeted him and bowed in unison. Wang Dong nodded slightly and cupped his hands. He smiled and said, "So it's junior brother Jian Shun and junior sister Chu Xian. There's no need to be so polite." Baiming Shui was still sitting on the limestone and cultivating with her eyes closed, as though she was deaf to everything in the outside world and had no intention of getting up. "This is..." Wang Dong's gaze shifted to Su Zimo and he asked. Jian Shun said hurriedly, "This is fellow Taoist Su from the heavenly world. He came to visit the sword world, so I'm bringing him around." Baiming Shui's heart skipped a beat when she heard the words, fellow Taoist Su. However, on second thought, she thought, how is that possible? There are too many cultivators with the surname Su in the world. How can there be such a coincidence? I'm the one acting abnormally. Sigh. There's been no news of Master all these years. I wonder where he landed after ascending to the upper world. How is he now? Although Baiming Shui's eyes were still closed, she was distracted by the words, fellow Taoist Su, and could not continue cultivating. "Welcome, fellow Taoist from the heavenly world." Wang Dong smiled gently. Most sword cultivators of the sword world are belligerent. "Fellow Taoist Su, if you want to spar, you're welcome anytime." Su Zimo smiled and nodded. Chu Xian looked at Wang Dong with an obvious gaze of admiration and asked gently, "Senior brother Wang, what are you doing here?" Wang Dong shook his head gently and looked at Baiming Shui beside him with a helpless expression. "I came here to look for junior sister Baiming because I wanted to persuade her to give up on the martial Dao. As long as she's willing to give up on the martial Dao, her future achievements will be limitless even if she cultivates from scratch." Jian Shin probed. "From the looks of it, you've failed again, senior brother Wang." Sigh. Wang Dong sighed and smiled bitterly. "Junior sister Baiming is still too stubborn. I can't persuade her no matter what. I really don't understand. It's just a mere martial Dao. What's there to persevere about?" "That's right," Jinshin added. "The martial Dao is incomplete and junior sister Baiming can't see any hope even if she continues cultivating. What's the point?" Wang Dong said, "Actually, even if the martial Dao has a perfect dermic formulation, I don't recommend cultivating the martial Dao. The dermic Dao of the martial Dao was created by a cultivator of the lower worlds, and its future accomplishments will be limited. There's no way it can compare to dermic formulations like the immortal, Buddha, and fiend Daos that have been passed down through the ages." Suddenly, Baiming Shui said, "However, in the sword world, no heaven immortal sword cultivator who cultivates the immortal, Buddhist, and fiend Daos can defeat the sword in my hands." At the mention of that, Wang Dong, Jian Shan, and the others paused for a moment, speechless. After a moment of silence, Wang Dong said, "Although that's the case, your cultivation realm can only stop at the heaven immortal realm. What future do you have? You cultivate the martial Dao and can never ever condense a Dao fruit. As such, you'll never be able to defeat perfected immortals with condensed Dao fruits. That's a fact." "Not necessarily." Right then, Su Zimo, who had been silent the entire time, suddenly spoke. When they heard that, Wang Dong, Jian Shun, Chu Xian, and the others frowned. Baiming Shui shuddered and suddenly opened her eyes with disbelief in her beautiful eyes. This voice. Before Wang Dong and the others could react, Baiming Shui suddenly stood up and turned towards the voice, meeting Su Zimo's gaze. Baiming Shui clenched her fists instinctively with an excited expression. Her vision was blurry, and the person before her seemed to have become surreal. Wang Dong and the others looked at Baiming Shui in shock. They had never seen such a huge emotional fluctuation from Baiming Shui. Baiming Shui had a calm expression in the sword world the entire time. She cultivated the sword Dao, and her relationship with anyone was casual and brief. To think that she would become so emotional at the sight of fellow Taoist Su from the heavenly world. Is this real? Baiming Shui could not believe it for a moment. She rubbed her reddened eyes and focused her gaze once more. The green-robed man with refined features not far away looked back at her with a faint smile on his face. Instantly, Baiming Shui slipped into her memories. It was as though she had returned to the past when she had first met this man. "Master?" she called out carefully. "It's me." Su Zimo nodded. Chapter 2737, 2737 Dao Discussion. 2737 Dao Discussion. When she heard that answer, Baiming Shui was truly convinced that the scene before her was not an illusion. Right in front of Wang Dong and the others, Baiming Shui leaped down from the limestone and sprinted towards Su Zimo, arriving before him in the blink of an eye. The two of them were too close, and Su Zimo was slightly stunned. Baiming Shui blushed slightly, seemingly realized that this might look a little inappropriate. Baiming Shui took a deep breath of air and suppressed her excitement. She took 2 steps back and bowed respectfully to Su Zimo. "Greetings, Master." Wang Dong, Jin Shun, and the other sword cultivators were dumbfounded. All of them witnessed the excitement and joy in Baiming Shui's reddened eyes, as well as the restraint she exercised later on. They could not understand at all. Why would the calm Baiming Shui reveal such intense emotions when she saw this man? Even if this person was Baiming Shui's master, there was no need for her to behave as such, right? Actually, in Baiming Shui's heart, Su Zimo was not only her master who imparted the Tao to her. Su Zimo was more like her family. The path of cultivation was long. As her cultivation realm increased continuously, she grew further and further away from her old friends. Her younger brother had been in Tianhuang mainland the entire time and could not ascend. After Baiming Shui ascended, she descended into the sword world. Although she was valued by the sword world and was taken care of by many senior brothers and sisters, she had always been alone in her heart. She was focused on the sword Tao and was already used to the loneliness. However, occasionally, in the quiet and deserted night, she would recall her time in Baiming Town in Tianhuang mainland. It had only been 3 years, but it was the most unforgettable memory she had ever had since she started cultivating. In the thousands of years in the sword world, she often recalled that period of cultivation and missed the person back then. It was only at this moment that she felt some warmth and no longer felt lonely. That was the reason why she was so agitated and even lost her composure when she saw the person in her memories. Wang Dong, Jin Shun, and the others gradually reacted, and the way they looked at Su Zimo changed. Although Wang Dong did not have any hostility towards Su Zimo, there was a hint of scrutiny in his gaze. Jin Shun, Chu Xian, and the others looked awkward. Earlier on, they were discussing Baiming Shui's master in front of Su Zimo. To think that the main character was right beside them. So fellow Daoist Su is junior sister Baiming's master in the lower worlds. I've heard a lot about you. Wang Dong smiled and cupped his fists towards Su Zimo. Thereafter, he changed the topic. Fellow Daoist Su, you seem to have some complaints about my words earlier on and don't agree? Wang Dong still remembered this. He had just persuaded Baiming Shui to continue cultivating the martial Tao. If she could not condense a Tao fruit, she would never be able to defeat perfected immortals who condensed Tao fruits. A sharp glint appeared in Wang Dong's eyes, and he subconsciously exuded a dignified aura. He asked, "Fellow Daoist Su, do you think that cultivators without Tao fruits can defeat perfected immortals who condense and produce Tao fruits? He wants to discuss the Tao with me?" Su Zimo thought to himself. In reality, with his current knowledge, even immortal kings might not be able to compare to him in terms of dermic Tao insights, let alone the few perfected immortals before him. Over the years, the two true bodies had read a few taboo mystic classic and countless sutras and secret skills. The martial Tao prime body established the martial Tao in the martial domain realm, even traveling into the hell world and the netherworld. Those experiences and memories allowed Su Zimo's comprehension of the dermic Tao to far surpass his peers. To the living beings of the 10,000 races of the upper world, Wang Dong was indeed right. This was almost irrefutable common sense. It was not only the dermic Taos of the immortal, Buddhist, and fiend sections. For dermic Taos of other races, almost all of them could condense Tao fruits. It was just that their titles were different. Even in the hell world, Some nether generals would condense nether crystals. The Dao fruit gathered the essence and profundities of the dermic Dao. Once the Dao fruit was condensed, one would obtain a qualitative transformation. However, the martial Dao was different from these dermic Das. From the beginning, the martial Dao viewed the body as the greatest treasure and continuously developed its potential, tempering the body and bloodline. That was why at the true martial realm, martial Dao practitioners would forge the true martial Dao body and fuse their dermic Dao into their bodies and bloodlines. That was comparable to the Dao fruits of perfected one-realm living beings. Su Zimo said indifferently, if you cultivate the martial Dao, you can defeat perfected immortals at the perfected one realm even if you don't condense a Dao fruit. Fufu, Wang Dong, Jinshan, and the other sword cultivators shook their heads and could not help but chuckle. Su Zimo's words sounded way too ridiculous to everyone. It was simply nonsense. If not for the fact that Su Zimo was a guest and Baiming Shui's master, Jinshan and the others would have mocked him long ago. Wang Dong said in a deep voice, fellow Taoist, you're wrong. There are thousands of dermic formulations for the living beings of the 10,000 races. However, they all have to condense Dao fruits to attain the great Dao. That's right. The other sword cultivators agreed one after another and looked at Su Zimo with disdain. Wang Dong shook his head slightly. Junior sister Baiming's master was rather mediocre in his dermic Dao insights. If junior sister Baiming cultivated with him in the future, how could she stand out? Wang Dong looked at Su Zimo deeply and said earnestly, fellow Taoist, your cultivation realm is limited, and you might not be able to see the future clearly. Actually, the Dao fruit is only the foundation of the great Dao of cultivation. After the perfected one realm is the grotto heaven realm. If I don't condense the Dao fruit, how can I nurture a grotto heaven in the future and become an immortal king? When he said that, the sword cultivators immediately felt enlightened. How could a grotto heaven be condensed without a Dao fruit? When he heard that, Jin Shun could not help but clap in praise. From another perspective, those words confirmed the necessity and importance of condensing a Dao fruit. Chu Xian was even more enamored towards Wang Dong. Only senior brother Wang could casually explain dermic Dao insights with such ease. Actually, the reason why Wang Dong was so patient and discussed the Dao with Su Zimo was because he wanted the latter to back off in the face of difficulties. If even Su Zimo gave up on the martial Dao, there was naturally no need for Baiming Shui to persist. However, Su Zimo's expression was calm after hearing his opinion. He was not shocked at all, nor did he look enlightened. Su Zimo was about to speak when Baiming Shui, who was at the side, was already impatient. She had just reunited with Su Zimo and had countless things she wanted to confide in him. All she wanted was to find a place where no one would disturb her and chat with Su Zimo. To think that these sword cultivators would be so tactless and spoke incessantly. Their endless talking was as annoying as mosquitoes and flies. Baiming Shui took a step forward and came to Su Zimo's side. Master, let's go. These sword cultivators of the upper world are ignorant and don't know anything. Wang Dong, Jinshin, and Chu Xian. As Baiming Shui spoke, she dragged Su Zimo out of the sword cleansing pool and towards her cave abode. The two of them disappeared before long, leaving the sword cultivators standing in the wind, stunned on the spot for a moment. Chapter 2738, 2738 Storm. 2738 Storm. This isn't too good, right? Along the way, Su Zimo asked, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Baiming Shui said casually, it's fine. I couldn't stand it any longer and was prepared to return to my cave abode as well. Pausing for a moment, Baiming Shui continued, furthermore, they just don't know the martial Dao. Su Zimo smiled and asked, are you so sure that you can defeat other perfected immortals who have condensed their Dao fruits after cultivating the martial Dao? I don't know. Baiming Shui shook her head gently before looking at Su Zimo with a firm gaze. However, I believe in you, Master. In this world, Su Zimo was probably the only person she could trust without holding back. Su Zimo smiled. Don't worry, I've already deduced the subsequent dermic formulations of the martial Dao Fate Ring. As long as I impart them to you, you'll definitely be able to break through with your comprehension. Bai Mingxue was not surprised, nor did she have much of a reaction. In her heart, compared to their reunion, the matter of the martial Dao was not important. Su Zimo pondered for a moment. You've already cultivated your martial Dao quite well. However, it's not time for you to advance to the next realm yet. After the martial Dao Fate Ring realm is the true martial realm. Dermic formulations of immortals, Buddhas, and fiends condense Dao fruits at the perfected one realm. As for martial Dao practitioners, they shatter their fate rings at the true martial realm, and countless martial Dao runes fuse with their physiques and bloodlines to forge the true martial Dao body. In the fate ring realm, the better the foundation of your body and bloodline, the more you can synthesize as many martial Dao runes as possible and forge an even stronger true martial Dao body after stepping into the true martial realm. To Bai Mingxue, the dermic Daos of the martial Dao were not difficult to understand. She had obtained the true inheritance of the martial Dao and cultivated it for many years, so she had long gained many insights. As long as Su Zimo gave her some pointers, she would be able to comprehend the essence of the profundities even without him explaining in detail. Along the way, Su Zimo imparted the dermic Dao profundities of the true martial realm to her without reservation. Bai Mingxue listened attentively and was extremely quiet. She only glanced sideways occasionally at Su Zimo, who was imparting the Dao, and could not help but smile. At that moment, she felt a sense of security she had never felt before. It was as though the flow of time had reversed, and she had returned to the time back in Tianhuang mainland. Master, we're here? Bai Mingxue brought Su Zimo to a cave abode and stopped. Su Zimo looked at Bai Mingxue and said in a deep voice, therefore, for the next period of time, don't be in a hurry to break through. You have to continue tempering your body and bloodline and try your best to build your foundation at the Fate Ring realm. Yes. Bai Mingxue nodded before saying, Master, there's no hurry to cultivate. Let's talk about what happened after you ascended. Why are you here in the Sword World? Bai Mingxue's eyes revealed a hint of curiosity and concern. Su Zimo sighed gently. It's a long story. Pausing for a moment, he looked at Bai Mingxue and smiled. I heard that after you ascended to the Sword World, the people there treated you well and thought highly of you. Yes. Bai Mingxue said, Master, let's enter the cave abode first. I'll tell you about my experiences in the Sword World all these years. Actually, Bai Mingxue was not good with words. However, she seemed to have a lot to say to Su Zimo. All right. Su Zimo nodded. Indeed, there was no hurry to cultivate the martial Dao. He had nothing to hide from Bai Mingxue and could tell her everything that happened after he ascended. The master and disciple reunited after a long time and chatted in Bai Mingxue's cave abode for 3 days and nights. They spoke about Bai Mingxue's experiences over the years, as well as the terrifying dangers Su Zimo encountered after his ascension. The 3 days that the master and disciple spent in the cave abode were not very long. However, there was quite a commotion in the sword world in those past 3 days. It was not only Carnage Sword Peak. All the sword cultivators of the 8 sword peaks heard about it. Bai Mingxue's master from the lower worlds was here. Bai Mingxue was extremely famous in the sword world. After all, there were not many people in the sword world who could obtain the recognition of the 8 peak masters. Furthermore, Bai Mingxue had the strongest combat strength among the ordinary disciples. Be it the dermic Daos of the immortals, Buddhas, and fiends, none of the heaven immortal sword cultivators in the sword world could defeat Bai Mingxue and her sword. Furthermore, the dermic Dao that Bai Mingxue cultivated was extremely special. It was a dermic formulation that no one had heard of called the martial Dao. More importantly, Bai Mingxue was extremely beautiful and had an outstanding aura. She had a high status in the hearts of many sword cultivators in the sword world. If not for Bai Mingxue's cultivation realm, many sword cultivators would even think that she could be on par with the number 1 sword immortal of the sword world, who was also the top beauty, Lin Xuanjin. Lin Xuanjin cultivated the Sever Sword Dao and severed all emotions and desires. She was cold to everyone and exuded an unapproachable aura that kept everyone at bay. Compared to Lin Xuanjin, Bai Mingxue seemed much more normal. The fact that the number one of Carnage Sword Peak, who was also the eldest senior brother and a legacy disciple, Wang Dong, was willing to come and persuade an ordinary disciple had already proven something. The first day Su Zimo arrived in the sword world. Have you heard? Junior sister Bai Ming's master has come to our sword world. Her master from the lower worlds? What's his cultivation realm? It's said that he's at the Convergence Perfected One realm, not much higher than junior sister Bai Ming. That's quite ordinary. There are many legacy disciples of our Carnage Sword Peak who are above him. The second day. I heard that junior sister Bai Ming is very close to her master and even rebuked senior brother Wang that day. What did senior brother Wang say? So what? Senior brother Wang is a peak perfected immortal after all and can't stoop to that person's level. Furthermore, he's from the heavenly world and can be considered a guest of our sword world. The third day. What's going on? Junior sister Bai Ming and her master stayed in the cave abode for 3 days and nights without appearing. A man and a woman all alone. Don't spout nonsense. They're master and disciple after all. What master and disciple? I've seen that Su fellow before. He's young and has refined features like a scholar. When he's with junior sister Bai Ming, they don't look like master and disciple at all. Instead, they look like an immortal couple. This Su fellow won't lay his hands on junior sister Bai Ming, right? I had a hunch that he wasn't a good guy right from the first time I saw him. He's a beast in human clothes. Let's go. Let's take a look at junior sister Bai Ming's cave abode. For the past 3 days, Su Zimo and Bai Mingxue chatted freely in the cave abode. However, they did not know that there were discussions outside and the rumors were intensifying. Wang Dong and the other legacy disciples were also extremely concerned about this matter. However, due to their status, they could not appear. On the 4th day, many sword cultivators were already gathered near Bai Mingxue's cave abode. As time passed, the number of people increased. If someone gave the order, this group of sword cultivators would probably break in. Right then, the door to the cave abode opened. Bai Mingxue walked out. Chapter 2739, 2739 Extraordinary Means. 2739 Extraordinary Means. The group of sword cultivators lingering outside the cave abode stopped in their tracks and turned around. The initial clamor gradually faded. Bai Mingxue looked normal. When she saw the many sword cultivators gathered outside, she frowned slightly and asked, "What are you guys doing here?" Many sword cultivators exchanged glances with awkward expressions and hesitated without saying anything. They could not possibly say that they were worried that Bai Mingxue would be bullied by her master and came over to save her, right? In the crowd, Jin Shan stood out. No matter what, Su Zimo was led into the sword world by him from the outside. If Bai Mingxue was hurt, he would feel uneasy as well. Jin Shan explained, "All your senior brothers and sisters were worried about you when they saw that you and fellow Taoist Su stayed in the cave abode for 3 days and 3 nights without coming out." Worried about what? Bai Mingxue asked. Jin Shan coughed gently. After all, we don't know fellow Taoist Su very well, and you haven't met him for years either, junior sister Bai Ming. Therefore, we were worried that fellow Taoist Su might hurt you. He's my master. Why would he hurt me? Bai Mingxue said calmly, even if everyone in the world is my enemy, he will stand in front of me and protect me. Back in the south region of Tianhuang mainland, it was Su Zimo who protected her and even fought against the 3 aristocratic families. When they heard that, the sword cultivators had conflicted expressions. They were embarrassed and envious. How lucky was fellow Taoist Su to make junior sister Bai Ming trust him so much. Jin Shun sighed internally. Right then, Su Zimo walked out of his cave abode. Instantly, the gazes of many sword cultivators landed on Su Zimo. Everyone sized Su Zimo up continuously, wanting to see who Bai Mingxue's master was. Su Zimo had a calm expression and was long used to such gazes. Jian Chen hesitated for a moment before greeting Su Zimo. Su Zimo nodded slightly and did not exchange pleasantries with him. He said to Bai Ming-Shui, "Let's go cultivate at the sword cleansing pool." "Yes." Bai Ming-Shui nodded. Under the gazes of the sword cultivators, the two of them walked towards the sword cleansing pool. I thought that this person had some brilliant dermic formulation. In the end, isn't he just choosing to go cultivate beside the sword cleansing pool? How is this different from junior sister Bai Ming's usual cultivation? He's only a convergence perfected immortal. In my opinion, he's not qualified to impart the Dao to junior sister Bai Ming. That's right. Right now, I'm worried that not only will junior sister Bai Ming waste time cultivating the martial Dao with this person, she'll also waste her sword Dao talent. Let's go take a look together. The group of sword cultivators discussed and walked towards the sword cleansing pool as well. In the past 3 days, Su Zimo had already helped Bai Ming-Shui formulate her cultivation direction. The most suitable place to temper one's body and bloodline was none other than the sword cleansing pool at the foot of Carnage Sword Peak. Prior to this, Bai Ming-Shui had only cultivated beside the sword cleansing pool. As for Su Zimo, he was prepared to let Bai Ming-Shui enter the sword cleansing pool so that she could withstand the impact of the violent sword qi and the invasion of the killing intent. This cultivation method was extremely dangerous, but it could maximize the transformation of Bai Ming-Shui's physique and bloodline. Furthermore, under the continuous invasion of the killing intent, Bai Ming-Shui's martial intent and Dao heart would undergo a further transformation. Of course, the entire process would definitely be extremely painful. The sword cleansing pool was used to refine weapons. But now that Su Zimo wanted Bai Ming-Shui to cultivate in the sword cleansing pool, it was equivalent to treating Bai Ming-Shui's flesh and blood as a weapon to temper. The moment many sword cultivators arrived at the sword cleansing pool, they saw Bai Ming-Shui jumping into it. "Ah!" someone exclaimed. "Senior sister Bai Ming, what are you doing? Do you want to die?" Many sword cultivators were shocked as well. Jian Shun, Chu Xian, and some other perfected immortals hurried to the side of the sword cleansing pool, prepared to release their dermic daos to save Bai Ming-Shui. However, before Jian Shun and the others could attack, Su Zimo stopped everyone and asked in surprise, "What are you guys doing?" Su Zimo truly did not understand why the group of sword cultivators were so nervous when he was teaching his disciple here. A perfected immortal frowned and said in a deep voice, "The sword qi in the sword cleansing pool is extremely violent and sharp. How can a body of flesh and blood withstand it?" The sword cleansing pool is used to refine weapons. "Su, were you the one who made junior sister Bai Ming jump in?" Many sword cultivators glared at Su Zimo and questioned in an unfriendly tone. At that moment, Bai Ming-Shui was in the sword cleansing pool and was enduring the impact of the violent sword qi continuously. There was also the continuous invasion of killing intent. She could not be distracted and did not know what was happening outside. Su Zimo said, "Everyone, I'm here watching over her. Don't worry." Those words could not calm the anger of the sword cultivators at all. Jian Shen looked at Bai Ming-Shui, who was covered in injuries and drenched in blood in the sword cleansing pool, and his heart ached. Even some perfected immortal experts did not dare to set foot into the sword cleansing pool casually. He suppressed the anger in his heart forcefully and asked word by word, "Fellow Daoist Su, is this the martial Dao you're talking about?" Su Zimo was silent. If he wanted to temper his body and bloodline, how could he build a perfect foundation without extraordinary methods and unbearable pain that was different from ordinary people? Back when the martial Dao prime body stepped into the true martial realm, he endured the torture of hellfire and the endless true intent of pain. What Bai Ming-Shui was enduring at the moment was merely a fraction of the martial Dao prime body. If she could not even withstand this bit of pain, there was no need for her to cultivate the martial Dao any longer. These sword cultivators had good intentions and were worried about Bai Ming-Shui's safety. Su Zimo did not want to argue with them or cause any conflict. When Jian Shun saw Su Zimo's silence, he was even angrier. He clenched his fists slightly and said in a deep voice, "Fellow Daoist Su, I believe you don't know how terrifying this sword cleansing pool is. Why don't you jump in and experience it yourself?" That's right. As Bai Ming-Shui's master, You should jump down first and set the example. You're harming your disciple instead of jumping down yourself. Are you really worthy of being junior sister Baiming's master? The other sword cultivators said one after another with increasingly stern tones. Su Zimo was still motionless with an indifferent expression. Jianshan thought that Su Zimo was afraid and sneered. As Baiming Shui's master, you can't even withstand the impact of the sword-cleansing pool yourself. Why do you want junior sister Baiming to suffer? Su Zimo did not reply. Suddenly, he took out a bowl and filled it with sword chi water from the waterfall of Carnage Sword Peak. The water in the pool was so clear that one could see the bottom without any impurities. Su Zimo said, "The water is very clean." Jianshan and the others looked at Su Zimo in confusion, not understanding what he wanted to do. Right then, Su Zimo picked up the bowl and drank the pool water filled with violent sword chi and terrifying killing intent in one gulp. Pissed, Jianshan and the other sword cultivators gasped and widened their eyes in shock. The accusations and questions from earlier on vanished instantly. Given Jianshan's cultivation, he could only struggle to hang on if he jumped into the sword-cleansing pool. However, he would definitely not dare to swallow the sword chi water directly. This meant that countless violent sword chi burst forth and exploded in his body. If he could not withstand it, his body would be torn into pieces by the sword chi. Right then, Su Zimo turned around and looked at Jianshan and the others, asking with a smile, "Everyone, you must be thirsty after saying so much. Do you want a bowl?" You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.